Hey, welcome to episode 6 of the Articulate Ox podcast, where artists talk about the art that made them artistic. Thank you so much for joining me. I am your host, Soma79. So our guest this week is New England battle rapper Kevin 3SK Sullivan. I've known Kev for like 15 years, and this dude absolutely shreds his opponents. He loves throwing in pro wrestling bars from the 80s and 90s, which always gets a pop out of me. I love watching Kev battle. We have a great conversation here about hip hop and about wrestling, which is probably why the episode goes a little long. The interview is about an hour and 40 minutes. So I'm not going to spend too much time here up front talking about it because there's a lot of talking coming. So I will mention at the end of the episode, there is a battle clip for Kev from one of his recent battles. You definitely going to want to check that out. And the topic today is Boston MC legend Akrobatik, who is a rapper that Kev and I have both been inspired by for probably over 2 decades. He's a legend in Boston and in the underground hip hop scene in general. So thank you so much for joining us, and I really appreciate it. Have a good one. We are here today at the Articulate Ox podcast. I am Soma79, your host, and this is Kevin 3SK Sullivan. How are you doing today?
What up? I'm excellent, man. Always good to talk to you. Pleasure to hear from you. Thank you for having me. Much
Stone Cold Steve Boston in the house.
Damn right. Ice cold wrestling bars.
Oh, yeah. I just heard you. I was watching some of your battles a minute ago. I just heard you drop a wrestling bar line. There was a line about smack you in the gums in the ring like Mr. Perfect.
Mr. Perfect.
Yeah.
Fucking one of my favorite bars actually ever is that one right there. I've heard other battlers use it since then. Like none of them before me, but I've heard a bunch of people use it since then. But it's one of my favorites ever.
Yeah. I definitely already had on my list to talk about wrestling bars and wrestling and all that shit. So,
well,
my goal is
for the subject that we're about to talk about too. So
my goal is for every conversation I have in this podcast to go back to pro wrestling. So this one's good.
Yes. I don't know if you've seen the shirt that I actually made these shirts, the pro wrestling, because in that same battle I say I'm known for cold wrestling bars.
I may need to buy one of those off you. All right, I have to buy one of those off you. I'm still rocking. I found this in the back of my closet, shady wear that I like never wore from like 2001. Yeah. It's
you can tell it's from 2001. It's like 6 sizes too big.
This is like
you lift your hands up. That was fucking.
This is like a Sean John medium from back then.
Yeah. It's funny. I bought an Adidas shirt the other day, and I bought a medium, which is what I usually wear, and it looks like some 04 triple XL shit.
You're like,
I was like, Adidas is still on that apparently.
Yeah. I was watching that Kanye documentary that Netflix had, and it was reminding me of that era in time in the early 2000s where the best fashion look was get the smallest, whitest shirt you can find in the biggest, puffiest jacket you can find.
Yes.
And that's fine for everywhere, you know.
Yeah, so. It was like. It was also kind of like the twist of like the raver period where people would wear like real tight shirts and extremely baggy pants.
Yep. I got some photos.
I always thought that was like a weird fashion too.
Oh yeah, I was all about that.
Oh, I know. We've talked about it before. That's
That's true. Talking, I don't remember. But all right, so back to topic at hand. So I didn't think we said who you are yet, really, besides being everybody knows 3SK, one of the top battlers out there right now, Massachusetts' finest, Stone Cold Steve Boston himself. I heard that slayed me. The Bean Malenko.
Fucking the fly Irish guy. That's why they hate your boy Mick Flair, aka John Senior Girl Naked a few times, aka Hacksaw Jim Thuggin, a few others I can't think of right now.
I'm sure they'll come to you. So 3SK here is a ridiculous battle rapper. Go find his videos on YouTube. What are some of the leagues that you've been battling in?
So 413 Battle League out in Western Mass is kind of like my home league, even though I don't live out in that area, but they're the people who have held me down the longest. Shark Tank Battlegrounds where I started. Big shouts to Chilla Jones, who actually, that was a league that ran like 10 years ago when I started. They're actually back up and running. Just had a crazy event yesterday. Unfortunately, I work very early in the morning, so I didn't go to a Sunday event. But utmost respect to Chilla and everyone like that. He's been holding me down for years.
I just heard you call him out on the video. You just said he was ducking you. 40 bars. So this is a strange juxtaposition.
Listen, fucking steel sharpens steel. To be the best, I want to battle the best. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I battle a lot of my friends. Like some people like
it's all in good fun too. It seems.
Yeah, and Chilla is hands down the best in New England. And if I want to be the best, I gotta at least try to beat the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there you go, man. I've heard that before.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
be the man. You got to beat the man.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I took shots. I forgot about that. Yeah, against 40, which is one of my favorite battles ever. Me versus 40 bars. Shouts to her. I
Oh
love her.
man, I just watched that and I'm like, I felt like I had to call my mom after that. And be like, I was like, you.
Yeah,
And I
that's a good
only got
one.
to see the first few minutes of her response, but it was pretty tight. Like I've seen her.
Oh, she's good. If you're
Awesome.
not
Yeah.
familiar with her, she is
Yeah.
ruthless.
Did she
She's
battle
a very well
Maroney a few
respected.
years ago?
Yes, that was actually her first battle on cam, if
Oh,
I remember
really?
correctly. Yeah, she did real well. It was funny because like at the time she got like a lot of hate, because like she was like a pretty
Yeah.
girl spitting gun. She had like a little pink dress on and shit, and she
Yeah.
was like spitting gun bars and shit. And at that time she got a lot of hate. And like fast forward years later, all the comments are people hating on Maroney for telling like jokes, and she was like
Yeah.
over the
It's
years
funny
like
how
the
it
complete
changes.
transition of like
Yeah.
back then all the people wanted to hear was jokes, and now people hate on Maroney for the jokes and
Yeah.
it's just weird how that like changed.
You
You know what I
can't
mean?
please
But
people. I do remember the elephant foot line that Maroney had on that.
I don't remember any of the parts in particular, but I remember
I
being very entertained at the
Yeah.
time.
I was like,
And
man. So.
yeah, it still is.
All
Yeah,
right,
but
so we can go on this forever. Let's get back a little bit to what we're here to talk about originally. The topic you chose was acrobatic, the acrobatic EP, which
absolutely, yeah. You got to see right here. I got the vinyl right
yeah,
here,
man,
which
this thing is oh man, I was so glad to revisit this. I'm in this project now where I'm trying to reorder all my CDs, and I just come across this the other day, and I was like, I got to listen to this. So I was so glad to
yeah,
get to it again.
yeah. So when you hit me with the ideas, like something that inspires you, I took a while thinking about it, and I kind of like was kind of like wrecking my brain thinking about it. My first thought was actually the movie Crush Groove, which I'm
Oh,
sure
Crush
you
Groove,
remember,
yes,
the Def
yeah.
Jam story. I love that movie,
Oh man,
and it came to mind first because I was talking about it recently with someone. Like, because someone was like, "Oh, like I love the NWA movie, and obviously Eight
yeah,
Mile is a
yeah,
great
yeah,
movie as a battle rapper."
right.
I'm not even the biggest Eminem fan, but when that movie came out, I
Oh
was like,
yeah,
"Oh fuck," you know what I mean? I
yeah.
was like,
It was like everybody
who
thought they were
wasn't?
Rocky, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I always say like that movie was great for me because everybody wanted to battle, so it gave me so many people to battle. All of a sudden, everybody in my high school had at least one battle rap written. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I battled.
But
I did a few TD3 battles around that
yeah,
time
yeah.
too. It was
Um,
some went better than others.
Yeah, yeah, dude, listen, a lot of us were like that back then. But
Yeah,
I almost was gonna do that as my topic because that movie really inspired me because there was so much like business, like behind the scene, the business of
yeah.
it. There was a scene where LL Cool J kicks in Rick Rubin's door,
Yes.
and which really happened. That's like a
Yeah.
100% how it went down,
Yeah.
and I loved it. I love that movie. But I decided to go with the acrobatic for this first EP, and the reason I did that is Hempfest 2000. I'm gonna show my age real quick.
Yeah.
Hempfest 2000. I was 14 years old. I just, what I thought became an adult. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
right. Yeah.
14 years
Yeah.
old, you can't tell me nothing. Me and my friends went down to Hempfest for the first time ever. I was a freshman in high school.
I turned 21 that year and I thought I was an adult too. I wasn't.
Yeah, yeah,
So
same. You know what I mean? We always listen. I'm 36 and I think I'm an adult. I'm not
yeah,
quite sure.
I'm
I
not.
don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a very pivotal moment in my life. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, that was when we first started partying, getting laid, doing
Yeah.
crazy shit.
And just do
I was hanging
Hempfest
out.
then, that it was not, you couldn't just spark up. People did it, but it wasn't like it's now. Like it was like,
Well, that was the thing. Like, so that summer, I went to my first concert ever, which was Ozfest 2000, which is another great story.
yeah,
And that was the first time I ever seen people like in public smoke weed. But that was different. That was at a concert, and I kind of
right,
knew that that's how it went down. But getting to Hempfest, and people were just openly smoking, those
right,
cops there and shit. I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like, weed was still very illegal then. Like, you walk outside of Hempfest, you get arrested, but they kind of didn't
right.
bust your balls then.
And they
But
arrested
so it was
enough
a
people to make an example every year, so they could say
yes,
that
yeah, yeah,
everybody
yeah. And it was
was.
like,
Yeah.
don't be the example. You know what I
Right,
mean? Like,
right.
yeah. But it was a very surreal thing for a 14-year-old kid to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I remember that so vividly that like we had just got there. We were kind of hanging out, like not right up at the stage, but kind of in that area. And I remember the guy who was announcing was like, oh, up next, we got a local rapper by the name of Akrobatik coming out of Dorchester, Mass. And remember he said that, I was like, local rapper. And he came on. I don't remember the first song he did, whatever, but right away, he had those boom bap beats. So right away, I was like, oh shit. And like I remember we were smoking, and I'm kind of like inching towards the stage. I was like, I gotta see this kid. You know what I mean? Like I gotta see
Right.
this guy. And he killed it. He absolutely killed it. It was amazing. I think Lift was there with him. I don't 100% remember if Lift did the set with him, but I remember them announcing Acrobatic. So like fast forward like an hour or so later, we're walking around and he had a booth. And me and my buddies walked over and saw him. I gave him daps and blah 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 blah. My buddy bought the CD, and I bought the vinyl, which I still have to this day. And I didn't even have turntables at the time, but I wanted to be a DJ so
Right.
bad. That I was like,
Yeah.
I'm
You gotta
buying
start
the
somewhere.
vinyl. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, because my buddy bought the CD. My buddy Della B, one of my great mates. Actually, Eric Della Baba. very well, I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure, right?
I
So
think
it's his
so.
brother Jay, who's one of my best friends.
Yep.
So he bought the CD, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy the vinyl. Didn't even have turntables yet, but I was like, I know I'm gonna get them, so I bought
Yeah, yeah,
them,
yeah.
and we listened to it the entire ride home. And we were talking about wrestling bars. There's a song
Yes,
Battle
with him and
Royal
Esoteric.
with Esoteric, and
Yeah.
I so vividly remember like we're getting the car driving back from Boston, and that song comes on, and I'm in the backseat, my eyes light up again. I was like, yo, these are all wrestling bars, like right
Yeah.
off the intro, the Black Act Mulligan, IRSO, and the dude, just like I did at the beginning, that was
Yeah,
Stone Cold
yeah.
Steve Austin. Like I stole my entire style from that song, and I'm not even,
Yeah.
I have no shame in admitting it.
No,
Like
I mean,
that hit that.
I think it's that is I think that's actually the song that made me find because I was a big Esoteric fan, and I think I found him through as Acrobatic through that song.
100%. I am a huge Esoteric fan, and like again, no shame to admit, like I was like Esoteric and Big L. The first time I heard the two of them, like the first
Yeah.
time I heard Big L, I threw away every single rhyme I had ever written. And I was like, okay, that's how you structure a bar. Like I
Yeah.
was like, better flee, hop to get your head flown, 3 blocks,
Box.
Hell
Yeah.
Keys, rappers house bumping like
Like
Reebok. Like when
Box. Yeah.
I heard that, I was like, oh, that's how you do it. And then Eso, also had that same multi
Yes.
setup and was just such a heavy punch letter. And again, like, being a white guy from Massachusetts, I was like, yo, this guy it blew
Yeah.
my mind. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that song particularly was one of the ones that I, like held near
Oh
and dear to
God.
my
Yeah.
heart. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I went home that day and wrote a verse for it. You know what I mean? I went home rolling my
Right.
first wrestling bars that day. I was so inspired. They had the beat to The Flow, which is on The Flow, which is a great song. Me and
Yep.
me and Pasterosa Nakarnik, so you obviously
Yes.
know very
I know him
well.
very well. My former
Who
like Monarchy
yeah,
band
yeah, yeah,
member.
and still one of my best friends to this day.
Yep.
We
Me too.
rapped over that beat all day, every day. When I finally got the turntables that following Christmas,
Yeah.
and that was it. That was off. We were off and running as far as we were concerned. We were rappers after that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just I think you were kind of getting to this before that like there weren't really I'm a few years older than you. There weren't really Boston MCs. Like there was when I was a kid. And I go to like Sam Goody or whatever, there'd be 2 or 3 rows of tapes, and there was Ed OG and the Bulldogs, which was Boston MC, and they
Yeah,
try to you could say like New Edition, but like and then Gangstar, but it's like they almost felt more New York and Texas. Like Boston was almost like a
yeah.
third of what they were, it seemed.
So like I said, again, I was 14. Like I knew Gangstar, but I wasn't really big on Gangstar at the time. I didn't know Guru was from Massachusetts until probably 4 years later. I remember actually specifically, I was watching a documentary. I forget the name of the documentary now. I love. I'm a sucker for a good documentary,
Yeah,
especially
me
any
too.
hip hop one.
Yeah,
And he
so
was
many
talking
great
about
ones.
the busing situation in Boston, which very well known. He,
Yep.
he was one of the he was one of the people who got busted to white communities. He was talking about people throwing rocks at him, and I'm listening to the story, and all of a sudden it clicks. I'm like, oh my god! I'm like, Guru's from Boston. I was like, I never knew that. You know what I mean? Because he has that song. Oh my god, I can't think of the name of the song. It's off one of their albums where he raps about moving from Boston to New York.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I can't think of the name of the song. It'll drive me crazy if I keep thinking of it. But it never clicked on me until I heard that story that he was from Massachusetts. So
I
like
didn't
like you
know
were
until I saw his song outside of Tower Records. He had a star there because I saw the X Girl to Next Girl video when it came out in like '92, and then like I knew who they were, but it wasn't until one day I'm walking down Newbury Street in front of Tower Records he had a star, I think, and I was like,
yeah,
oh
no shit. I never knew that. I never
yeah,
noticed that. But yeah, to get back to what you were saying, so like at that time, like I said, I was 14 years old. I'd already been writing rhymes a little bit, little drunken freestyles, but nothing serious because I didn't know you could do it. Like I didn't know there was anything in
right,
Massachusetts for that. I didn't know about this was right around the time I discovered 88.9. And even then I wasn't
yes.
really, but by the way, RIP to 88.9 and night.
88.9 is how I got into underground hip
That
hop. That's
actually I could
without
have
it.
done a whole episode on that too, to be
I could
honest,
too.
about
Like
88.9 and night.
you know,
Um
yeah,
RIP to Emerson College, right outside of Commons, where Hempfest was, ironically.
yes,
Literally
yeah.
the studio was right there on not Park Street, but whatever that street is right there.
Yeah. I have cassette
Um
tapes that I taped like songs like the Tribe Called Quest scenario remix off like 88.9,
yes,
like
yes.
College Boys, like Victim of the Ghetto, and like all these like
Yes,
random songs, you know.
Mr. Lift's Old Crew. I don't know if you remember that song, Old Crew. These are people you once knew.
Yep.
I used to call and request that song all the fucking time because I could never find the CD or anything. That and there was a dude named Mr. DL who had a song called The Masterpiece, which sampled the Cheers song. Everybody knows your name, and he rapped about like just it was Boston Street. Like he had like even before like people were doing schemes, he was like, yo, this guy named Sullivan got bagged by smuggling Wonderland. He was listing off like all the streets
Oh my
and stuff
God.
like in that area, like the Sullivan Square and all that. And I
I
used to
used
call
to
and request those.
I
I used
used
to
to
call and
call
request
and
those two
request
songs.
Posse by Intelligent Hoodlum all the time. The song from like the Posse soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like
Yeah,
our jam back in the day. I
I
want to buy the
fucking
tape.
love 88.9 at night. And you know too, growing up, like I'll double back to my point, but
Yeah,
like it'll take me 20 times to double back. My
that's
point
fine.
is like there was a point in time in Boston hip hop when I first met you, when we all started, or I first started doing stuff, putting out music, doing shows. If you weren't on 88.9, you weren't shit. Like that
Yeah,
was like there was a point in time where I'd be like, oh yeah, I rap, blah blah blah, and they go, oh, do they play you in 88.9? Do you do shows with leads? And
yeah,
if you
that was
said no to
right.
both of those questions,
Then you weren't
you were
anything.
nobody.
Yeah,
You weren't shit. You know,
yeah,
like, and unfortunately, I never got the chance to get played at 88.9 at night. I never made censored versions of my songs, which was
right.
always the
Yeah,
problem. You know what I
I
mean?
got
Like I got
played
played,
on some other college radio station
yeah,
around here, but I was
same.
never on
I got
89.
played on ones that didn't mind pushing the boundaries a little bit. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
But I
yeah,
never. That's one of my biggest regrets. Is 88 I never actually played any of my songs. They
yeah.
shouted me out a couple of times and shit like that, but that's one of my
How does
biggest
that?
regrets.
I don't get. I can't believe that's gone. Like it seems like it's just.
Yeah.
I guess the thing is, there's probably no one there who there's no one who probably could bring it back who cares about the
No,
history enough to
even in the later days of it, like all like the Boston like Van Styles and a lot of those guys, it's a college, so at most you're there for 4 years.
Right,
You probably don't even get to be on the radio your first two.
right.
So
It's true.
really,
Yeah,
at most, you got 2, maybe 3 years of being a DJ there. And then I remember like the last couple of years, these kids would come in and they play what they want, and they were playing Little Wayne, they were playing shit
yeah,
like that. And you hear me like, oh, here's a guy named Asoteric, and it's like,
yeah.
oh, like it was like so cringeworthy. These
Right.
guys just
Yeah.
had no. Here's our lads entertainment. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and like to me, like I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that
It
was a very
probably.
sad moment in Boston hip
Yeah.
hop for me when that shit disappeared. You
It
know what I mean?
really, I remember, yeah, that was the worst. I mean, it's just, it
But
was, I can't think of I didn't have cable until I was 21. So it was like, there was like, all I had was like that show that D Barnes hosted on like, where like she showed videos, like with like who, I'm
the
not going to say
music
what she's
jukebox,
most
whatever it
famous
was.
for. What?
Yeah, I know, right? I know, right?
Yeah. But if you
Only
know,
people our age only know her name
yeah,
because of Guilty Conscience, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna
But
take advice from somebody who slapped D Bond.
yeah. And so the show she had, they used to put that in syndication on channel 38 at like 1 in the morning. So I set my timer and tape it. I didn't know what I was gonna get. It would be like Heavy D and the Boys, and then like Grand Poobah, and then like Gangstar,
And
and
like Salt and Pepper, yeah.
yeah, and then like Too
Yeah, if you were
Short, and
lucky,
it's like,
Gangstar.
but I still know like all of like Too Short's the Ghetto song. I could spit that entire song for you because it's like all I had back then. Like was these couple of things. So you just
Yeah.
it's. But so back to the yeah, because for
Back to that.
Boston MCs, all we had was like
Yeah.
like
Yeah, like so
Acrobatic
at the
was the
time I
first one who was like someone who not only I heard was from Boston, but I actually saw in Boston and saw
it was good. It was
right, and it
fine.
was
Because
good.
before that was Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch was what I was
Right.
gonna go at. That was the only
Yes.
other rapper I knew from
I
Massachusetts at
know.
that time. 14-year-old kid. I didn't get a computer in my house till I was 14 that same year, which is when I discovered Big L. So I wasn't really up on like a lot of that stuff. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
like I said, the big eye-opening year for me. I learned a lot of stuff as far as music and culture. Before that I was, a fucking
Yeah.
little kid. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. The
So this is
internet,
the
Napster, all that shit didn't
yeah,
exist.
yeah.
That
Like
makes
that
so
was the
much
year like
easier.
Napster became like a real fucking thing, at least in my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you were still buying vinyl.
I'm still
So
so that was another thing. This was the
yeah.
first vinyl I ever bought, and that has become as my wife would say, an addiction or borderline too much.
Yeah,
And
I can relate.
like especially these days and age, the Napster stuff, people don't own music. Like
I
I still
know.
try to buy CDs sometimes, especially local. Like I still have your album, your CD I bought me. I can't think of the name right now.
Sweet.
The radio,
Oh,
uh,
the
all the skits like
broadcasting from
based off of
channel 79.
yes,
Yeah, I
which
have
is
about
amazing
100 more
artwork.
copies if you want another.
And all honesty, I think I have two. I'm pretty sure I bought one, and you're like, you can just have another, like
Yeah,
give it to
you got
someone.
another 30.
I try to keep everything like that. Like I
too.
have so many local rappers CDs that I bought, and like people like Headshots, like Lateb,
Yeah.
people like I'm a big fan of Terminology, so I have a lot of Terminology shit.
Yeah.
That's like I actually listen to those. Not to say I don't listen to yours or anything, but like
Yeah.
Aztec, all these kids. I always try to support local hip hop. Even Matthias recently put out a project that I bought the vinyl for that.
Yeah.
So I became
gotta buy
obsessed with buying
Donnie's
vinyl.
I gotta buy Donnie's vinyl, Oblivious's
I haven't
vinyl.
checked
I
that
keep
out yet.
needing to
Yeah, if
buy
you
that.
got the vinyl, Donnie, if you're watching, if you got the vinyl, fucking hit me up. I'll always buy.
Yeah, me too.
Um,
That dude, I haven't heard of it. That dude has at least 2 songs on every album he puts out that I'm just like amazing.
Yeah,
I'm just still listening.
dude, he's a skillful rapper. No two ways
Yeah,
around
he
it. You
is.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? But yeah, so I bought this and then instantly became obsessed. So I remember we're talking about the Battle Royale song. So that was the first time I heard Esoteric.
Yep.
And so this was September Hempfest. In December, I actually got a pair of turntables. So obviously, I spent my grandmother gave me a couple bucks for Christmas and whatnot. I went down to I still remember Newbury Comics used to be in Braintree. It's at the mall now, but they had like their own store back then that was like actually like bigger. And they had a whole section of Boston hip hop. And I remember Esoteric's name. I recognized that. So I went and bought Word Association, the single.
Yep. I got that vinyl single too. Yeah.
I still got that somewhere in the pile. And that was another one of those. Like, oh my god,
that song was mind blowing. You know what's funny with that song? There was the line I heard the other day where he talks about the rumor of him dating Liv Tyler. I'm like, have I lived long enough to forget? I remember that rumor back then. I'm like, I never would have thought of that again.
It was Natalie True, Liv Tyler rumor, which is Natalie Portman. Yes. So it's so funny you say that because that was all I always wanted. I'm like, yo, Esoteric bang Natalie Portman, like that's so crazy. So like a year or two ago, one of the Czarface albums came out, and I had on my Instagram every once in a while I post a vinyl that I bought. I'm like, oh, just added this to the collection. I posted that, and Esso commented. And he's like, oh, thanks for the support. And like, again, I'm a huge Esoteric fan.
Yeah, me too. And he's the nicest guy on the planet too.
Such a nice guy. So I commented on him. I'm like, yo, Esso, I'm a big fan. I'm like, ironically, Word Association was one of the first vinyl I ever bought, and it started my collection. He goes, oh, that's awesome. He goes, Natalie True, Liv Tyler, rumor. And I was like, yes. I was like of all the lines to quote, that was the one he quoted to me. And it made my fucking day. I was like, yes. I was like, dude, you're the fucking man.
I have to say that he is, hip hop, and I guess now people are nicer. People tend to be nicer to them than they probably were back in the day and had their guard up. He was the one guy that if you had something bad to say about him, it always told me more about the person saying it than him, because he's been the nicest guy that could ever have been in hip hop, and he worked really hard for everything he has. So
dude, I love the success he's getting now. Like it almost came like so later than I expected. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I remember that album came out. Soul Purpose came out.
Yep.
I don't remember if Bars of Death was next or there was another one in between.
It was Soul Purpose, then it was then it was the one with the Word Association, which I can't think of the title of now. Then
you're right.
Dangerous Connection. It was Dangerous Connection.
Dangerous Connection.
Then it was Bars of Death. And then it was and that might have been the techno we want after that. There might have been one in between.
There was one in between. I could picture the cover. It had a shoe.
Oh, Moment of Rarities. That
Moment of Rarities. Yep.
Yeah, that had the Chi-Town to Boston. That was,
yep. And it had the Rise of a Rebel. I can't think of that.
I love it.
That's a song I really like.
You're hanging on my words, but I'm stepping on your hands. I love that line. And then,
dude, I could quote Esoteric bars all day.
So you get shot in the dark like the Paris Hilton tape. That was I heard that and I was just like,
dude, that is the Rogue Nation. Boondog Saints back for more. That whole song is like my battle rap style because it was just punch. Oh, dude, I love that shit. I'm a punchline rapper. I always have been.
We beheading your heroes. Better get ready for Eddie Guerrero. Theoretically, a chance of dead and me zero. That is one of my. That's one of my top 5 favorite.
And as a wrestling bar. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Then he goes, "Bite the Iron Man like Jack Ghost Bars of Death connected like that."
Like money fresh off the press.
Yes. He did. I saw him playing out here about a couple months ago. He was opening for Lord Finesse, and he was doing stuff. Because every time I see him now, he's doing Czarface stuff, but he was doing all the old stuff, and like it was awesome. So.
Like I was just saying, I get like so. I remember when Bars of Death came out. I was talking to someone. I was like, we were still pretty young at that time, and I kept being like, yo, I wonder if S will ever like blow up. You know what I mean? Yeah. I still had that like thought of like, oh, like he's one song away from being like. I thought like he could be like. This is back when lyrical hip hop still, mattered. You know what I mean? And like the Eminem wave was like big, and like people like Paul Wall were popping up, and a lot of these white rappers.
But he was a white rapper that there wasn't that version of the white rapper on the national scale yet. Like there was other. He wasn't like Paul Wall. He wasn't like Eminem. But he was authentic to what we were like. Like he was a dude like us.
And I always like kind of imagined like I always wanted him to do that. Like I was like, if he just made that one song that just fucking exploded, and obviously that never happened, but to see his success now that he's having with the Czarface, and obviously Inspector Deck, one of the greatest writers. Yeah,
like it really like. Yeah, I think they were so. I mean, they had done the 12/12 album that you can't even find anymore because I think they were.
Not only that, they did the Speak in Real Words on Soul Purpose.
Yeah, they did back in the day.
Czarface didn't come until
Years later, yeah.
Fucking 20 years later. By the way, this album is 22 years old.
I know. I
It
couldn't
was
believe it when I
22
saw the
years
date on
ago.
this. I was like, oh my
2020, 2000 Detonator Records. By the way, going back to this, I sent so many shitty demo tapes to Detonator Records, and I prayed. Good thing I don't go by the same name anymore, because I'm always afraid. Like if I meet
I
I
know.
was so afraid when I met Akrobatik, he'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I remember those
Oh,
fucking
this
tapes."
guy.
Like,
Yeah.
no, they were like no
Yeah.
editing, no, like straight up holding
Especially
a
because remember the
microphone.
esoteric diss song towards whatever, he's like, I sent you my tape in 80s in like 9/6, and
Yeah,
these
yeah.
guys talk about it
They'll
like it's
talk
still
about
in
it
your
like it's
whip.
still in your whip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that's by the way, Esoteric's diss tracks to Cage
Brutal.
in Copyright were
Right.
amazing,
Right. I know.
amazing.
I know.
Do it. The song "Do It."
Yeah.
Suicide this, suicide that. Do it. It's like, I can't believe I wasted this beat on someone so cheap.
Shout outs to Copyright. I have about 5 unreleased songs with Copyright.
I heard, yeah,
They're
yeah.
coming.
Listen, Copyright's nice.
He's
He did,
nasty, man. Nasty.
he actually did a couple of battles, like the style of
Yeah.
battles I do recently against. He did one against a kid, a guy named Reverse Life, who I'm a big fan of,
Oh,
and he did
cool.
well. I mean, like a lot of these rappers try to step into the shit and don't do well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he did well.
He knows how to
I
command a
always,
crowd. He's got that certain presence to him.
yeah, and I always liked him, but I mean, obviously, I was a big Esoteric fan, so at the time, I was like, "Fuck him."
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's like it was
That's
funny.
how we rolled back then. You
I
know what I
know
mean?
it was. It was like,
At least me.
it was making
But
fun of Cage's pants for the next 4 years. Like,
yeah,
it's
right.
funny too that you mentioned that. I'm looking at like the location here. This location is, I believe, right at near BU. The Commonwealth Ave address here, Boston, because I went to BU and I lived about right a block from here. This, I think, is not
Yeah.
far from where the Planned Parenthood shooting was in like the late 90s to
Oh
show my
yeah.
age. I looked up Detonator Records because I remember the name. It's basically, it was owned by Acrobatic, it would seem. And then Brian Life here, I don't know if you know him. He was boys with like I knew Judge and all of them knew him a little bit. I think, and so I remember it being a big deal that someone that they all knew was getting these type of great opportunities.
Yeah.
In Karma now, I think
I was literally just going to say Karma did the artwork and layout.
yeah,
He did a lot of esoteric shit
right.
too.
And I think he's the guy who runs, there's a place called House of Rue or House of Rouleau. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's an art gallery place around here that I bought a bunch of really cool stuff from. And they
Oh
sometimes
no
have like
shit.
Norman Rockwell type stuff too. And I think it's run by Karma.
Karma the Snake Trauma.
Yeah.
That was his full rap name at the time. Was Karma the
Yes.
Snake Trauma.
Yeah. It was funny, like, and that was something too I was kind of thinking about too, is I thought about this idea. I'm gonna put it out there and someone's probably gonna steal it, but which is fine because I'll probably never do it. But like there's all these other MCs, like you see the names in the back of this. Like, and I don't want to like throw shade at anybody here, but dudes like Breeze Ever Flowing, that like, I mean, I haven't heard that name in a long time. But back then,
Yeah.
the dude he's a top tier MC, and he probably still is. But like it seemed like over time, some of these guys, and I think Jakai the Motormouth now sells real estate in Vegas. Him and I are like Instagram friends, and it's like you like this idea of like when these rappers finally decide that these were all dudes that were just beasts when they decided to just settle and get a regular job. And I kind of wanted to do a documentary interviewing some of these guys about what it was. And it's like, I think with Esoteric, I mean, I don't know, like if they hadn't, the Czarface thing pushed him to a whole new level, but it's like, he could have been one of those guys,
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know what Acrobatic does for a day job these days. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, I know he still makes music and stuff. He had some health problems a few years ago, so he wasn't touring or doing anything like that. Which was a very heart-wrenching moment when I thought we were going to lose to Acrobatic.
I know.
They had the Acrobatic tribute show, which I've been to 100 million Boston hip hop shows. That was one of my all-time favorite shows. It happened right around the same time the Guru died. It was the Guru tribute show, the Acrobatic show. I want to say they were like a year apart. I forget which was first.
Yeah.
But they were both amazing, amazing shows.
Yeah. But there was because I remember. So did you ever get a chance to meet Acrobatic? I got a couple of quick.
I've met him a handful of times. I got the pleasure to do I think 2 different shows with him, and I've met him more times than I can count. Yeah, anytime I ran into him at like the Cambridge Galleria once and shit like that. Like
I ran into him at Best Buy once, I think.
Yeah, just like being out and about, and like I said, I've been to 100 million hip hop shows. Like I spent my entire 20s at the Middle East and at Harper's Ferry and the Western Front. And any dive bar that would give me a microphone. You know what I mean? Like, so, I had the pleasure of meeting a lot of rappers that I literally looked up to. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you remember when we did the Warren G show, the
Yes.
past Rosa book, and I was talking about like, yo,
Yes.
like I've been listening to Warren G since I was a fucking
I
child, you
know.
know what I mean? Like, and like shit like that. Like, I never made it as a rapper. Also, I'm gonna go back to like, I never made it as a rapper, but I made a lot of memories as a rapper.
Right. It's something like when I
That
tell
I would
people I'm a
never.
rapper and I'm like, yeah, I opened for Warren G once. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
okay,
Right? Like
that's
we start
what's
listening to like
that's
people like, oh,
what
that's like,
that's worth. You know?
yeah.
It's
And well, it's funny because you're talking about rappers getting day jobs. So like, I'm a union pipe fitter, which I love my career. I make great money, and
yeah.
it's treating me very well. My wife just walked in trying to fucking talk to me.
Hey, what's up, Chris?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm in her office because
Oh, yeah.
my her office / my fucking shoe collection room.
Yeah, I was admiring that. Yeah, I had to stop myself from buying the Zarface shoes because I never leave the house, so I could not buy another pair of shoes, and now I really wish I bought them.
Yeah, 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 dude. You're telling me, dude. I was telling you, I broke my foot a couple months
Oh,
ago,
I
so
heard. Yeah,
I
sorry.
wore the same right shoe for 4 months, but I still was buying sneakers that I haven't fucking worn. But anyway, to go back to what we were talking about, battle
Yeah,
rappers having jobs. So
yeah,
when I got into the pipe fitters union, and these days I don't usually bring up that I'm a rapper when I meet people, especially
yeah,
older
yeah.
people
Same with me. Yeah,
who don't get it. You know what I mean? Like if I'm
yeah,
talking to someone my age and I know they've listened to rap, like I'll tell them like, yeah, you know what I mean. Even still, I'm kind of always hesitant, like especially
yeah.
explaining to them I'm a battle rapper, like. And like, oh, like 8 Mile. I'm like, well, kind of like there's no
Right.
beat, and I write it before, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's an awkward conversation.
Yep.
But my point is, when I first got in, and some of the older guys found out, they were like, "Oh, so like, you're gonna get famous and leave us?" And I'm like, "No, I'm here because that shit didn't work out." I'm
Right.
like, "I need health insurance, bro." I'm like,
Yeah.
like
I had someone
hip
say
hop
that
shit.
to me. I had someone say to me at my job, and I was like, "All right, if your daughter said I'm gonna grow up and be the starting center of like the Liberty or something, that's like basically the same thing as me saying I'm gonna go be a rapper. So it's
Yeah,
like believe me the same way you believe her, seeing
yeah,
that like she's like 4 feet taller, and it's just like you're
yeah,
just
yeah, right.
like you should be glad this is my dream because my dream is not to have your job. Like
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah. Like, yeah, I got lucky. My fallback plan turned out very well for me. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
same with me.
It
Yeah,
still gives me the freedom to do these battles and to do hip hop shows
yeah.
and to do music when I feel like it.
Yeah, I love my job, and
Um,
that's a great thing too. We're here talking about inspiration and just doing stuff. It's creating a life that allows you to do your art and still make money,
yeah,
and not always be
yeah,
connected. Is you
yeah.
know, so
Which in all honesty was like my biggest fear going into it. Like my father's pipe fit, my grandfather's pipe for all my brothers. I'm a fourth generation, so I've always been around it my whole life. But I see my father wake up at 4:30 in the morning my whole life, and that was
yeah,
like my biggest fear. You know what I mean? Like because
yeah,
I thought like I would never have free time. Like my father worked very hard, and my father's a great man. But he worked, to the bone to provide for all of us. And I never, not to say I never wanted to do that, but I was like, I thought if I did, like that was the end of my
right, right, yeah,
chasing music, the end of like my social life. You know what I mean? But
yeah, yeah.
I've learned to balance it
March to
fucking
the
well. And
grave, like
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I thought that was it. You know what I mean? So like when people are like, oh, you're gonna leave here and get famous, I'm like, nah, like that shit sailed. I'm here for health insurance now. You know what I
right.
mean? Like,
No, it's like because even fame doesn't come with like fame doesn't always come with money, and it almost never comes with health
well,
insurance.
especially these days, dude.
I
People
know.
are Instagram famous. Yeah, you get 100 million followers and people asking for your autograph, but like that shit don't really pay. I mean, you can flip it into
Right,
a hustle. You can do ads on it, and you can if you're famous and not if you're a girl, you can really flip it into some money.
right.
But like, yeah, like a lot of people are famous and broke, and like that sounds like the worst. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
I always talk about it. R.A. the Rugged Man once said a great thing about that. He was like, "I'm just the right amount of famous." He goes,
Yeah,
I walk into the venue, I take pictures with girls, I sign autographs, I say, put your hands up." People put their hands up. Everybody knows me. Everybody loves me. He goes, "When I leave and go to 7-Eleven, I'm just another motherfucker."
yeah,
And I always thought of like that was like how I wanted to be. Like, I never wanted to be Eminem. Like people always assume as a white guy growing up at that time period, everyone's like, "Oh, like you must be a huge Eminem fan." And not to say I don't like him, but I was like, I never wanted to be that. I
right.
never had a dream of being that.
Yeah,
I wanted to
you
be
can't go to a
esoteric.
store. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
wanted to be esoteric. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I
Have a
wanted to be known
family
locally here.
in
Yeah,
like
I
yeah,
wanted that was always my goal. Like people always like obviously being having a gold record or a platinum record was awesome. But I always joke like never I had a line back in the day. I was like, I don't want to go platinum. I got dreams of selling 100,000. Like to
yeah.
me, that was
It's
like,
enough.
just famous enough, but
Well,
like
it's
not.
also sustainable, because it's like as I mean, it's you can't like nobody can keep selling all these records, and then it's like anybody, it's like who can sell these millions of records over and over again. It seems so
Yeah.
frustrating and such like a miserable way to try to go through
Yeah,
life. I
like
don't know.
literally, Eminem is one of the only people. Sorry to keep going back to him, but
Yeah,
fucking, he's one of the only people that still sells records because he came out right at that cusp of like people still buying it, and his fan base are old people like us. You know what I mean? Like so,
Yeah.
like literally, I remember in 2008, only two rap albums went platinum. It was an Eminem album and a Drake album. Those were the only
Yeah.
two that went platinum that year. But yeah, like
Yeah.
stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
these days, people don't buy. That's, to go back to what I was saying, the reason I still buy vinyl so much is because no one owns music anymore. Like I work with a couple of younger kids, and I asked him like, "When was the last time you bought a CD?" And he's like, "Ever." And he's like, "I'm like, when was the last time you bought, even download on your phone and pay for it?" He's like, "Never." He's like, "I have Spotify."
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I come from an era of owning music. Like to me, it means something to own it. You know what I
Yeah, me
mean? So
too. Yeah.
that's why I still buy vinyls. Like I buy CDs every once in a while just to have it. Like I said, like if I'm at a hip hop show
Yeah.
and a kid's
But
selling
vinyl
CDs,
sounds better, I
it
think.
does, and it's there's something about like
The texture
having like
of it.
it'll
Yeah.
like I have
The effort
vinyls in
that
my
goes into
collection.
it.
Yeah, I have vinyls in my collection that are 100 years old. Like I'm a big,
Yeah.
I really like classical music and I like old jazz and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really have Mozart albums and stuff that are literally 100 years old.
Damn.
I don't have a single CD that is more than 10 years old that isn't fucking scratched. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Vinyl was made to last forever, and
Yeah.
to me, there's something about that I love.
You're
You know what I
never
mean?
like
It's like,
shoving a piece of vinyl like underneath like the seat of your car or something. You're never
yeah,
like
right.
ramming it into a cup holder. Like,
Yeah, right. Like, it's
yeah.
just there's something magical about a vinyl. Like, even like I know you produce and you make beats, like digging, like
Yeah.
searching for samples, like that's is something about that just makes me happy. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's funny, like when COVID happened, like everything was shut down. There was you find it was so weird the things that you missed most. And I literally was like, dude, I want to go. So when COVID happened, I wasn't making music for a very long time, and then obviously COVID happened, all of battle rap shut down
Yeah.
and I needed to be creative. Like I'm just, I wasn't working for 4 months. A lot of construction in the city got shut down. I do a lot of work in hospitals and in schools. So obviously they didn't want us
Yeah.
at either of those. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The
So
less people out, the better. Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, I started going crazy. I was like, I need to be creative in some way. So I started making music and making beats again. And instantly I was like, all right, well, I need new records. I was like, I gotta go digging. I would find these like little consignment shops that were still open and shit. Like, and like I was on Facebook Market sale buying old people's jazz records in bulk.
Yeah.
Just and
Because
I was
it's
like,
like
it's
there's
weird
so
that
much
was one of the
music
things.
that's kind of just forgotten, and that never. There's so much even like there's tons of stuff that never pressed up except for on vinyl, and this
Yeah,
stuff is
yeah,
slowly disappearing. And there's breaks that people will never hear again, and it's like,
yeah.
I
Even
mean,
like
yeah,
even like sampling now is like a lost art. Like the new music that comes out today,
right,
a lot of it's electronic. And I get it because of copyright issues. Like,
yes, yeah,
a lot of these musicians, they're losing money too. Like we said, they're not selling records, but then they hear their guitar on the radio,
right,
and this is perceived to be
right,
making millions because the
right.
rapper's got a big chain on it and he's talking about all the money he has. When
But
really he's
there's
not making
really
that much
he's
money
making
off that song. He's making money off his personality. But
right,
it's like, yo, like if you're making 100 grand off that, I want my cut, which I get.
right.
I mean, I 100% get it, but it kind of destroyed that art of sampling also. You know what I mean?
That's why
So,
Fabulous sold away. He gave away all the publishing of Breathe, which is one of my
breathe.
favorite songs of all time because because the band didn't want, I forget who it was,
That's
like
the
Grand Funk or someone, I don't know, didn't want to give it up. And like he gave all of it away because he's like took me around the world. It's like,
yeah.
but
Yeah, I've heard that in a couple of songs. People had signed away their entire published rights just to get
yeah.
it released.
Yeah, it ends up being
Um,
the better move in the long run.
Again,
But
yeah, because if you can capitalize off making the name off that, you can still do the shows off it, and you can still make your name. Yeah, 100%.
yeah.
So
Yeah. So like back to Acrobatic for a minute. I always remember one time I sat directly across him at Monday Night Raw one night. So like I was on one side, and I kept seeing people come up to him and
another
like say
huge
what's
wrestling
up.
fan. Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, it's funny. This was good. I was trying to think about what I was mentioned before about the RA the Rugged Man thing. You know who else is like that, I guess, is RJD2. Because I was at breakfast one day in Waltham and it was like 7:30 in the morning at this place called Inner Pickle and it was packed. And I see this guy from across the room. I said to my girlfriend, that looks just like RJD2. And she's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah, because
all right.
most girls, that's not.
I'm like, the
Yeah.
guy who does the theme for Mad Men. He's like, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like I pull up a picture on my phone of him, and it looked like it was taken 5 minutes before whoever this guy walked in the door. I'm like, that's got to be him. So I'm like, I went on the way out. I'm like, sorry, I would really never do this, but it's gonna bother me. Are you RJ? And he looked like so shocked to be recognized, and he was
Yeah,
like so pleased. And it was like he was with someone else, and he looked like he was just like I don't know, like happy, like that someone was recognizing him in front of. I don't know what it was. I don't know what they were doing there.
yeah.
I think he was opening for the Disco Biscuits, like miles and miles away the previous night.
No shit.
out, but
That's
he was
funny.
so
Yeah,
pumped.
yeah.
And I was like, that's a
Uh,
great way to live, man. You can just sit there and only one idiot bothers you. And I'm like,
yeah,
I'm a
right.
rapper. I didn't even give him
And
my
it like made
CD.
his day that you
Yeah, I
did.
know.
Yeah,
He
like
was happy about it. I didn't want anything from him, but like, yeah,
yeah,
a good level
yeah.
of
That's funny.
famous. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like, and he probably got paid to do the disc business show. He probably doesn't work a real job.
Very
You know what I
well.
mean? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But like,
Yeah. I
uh,
remember
yeah,
seeing him,
it's amazing.
seeing going to a Soul Position show downstairs in the Middle East. It was him and Blueprint. And after they did all those songs, the crowd was screaming for him to do a set. But he's like, I didn't have my record. He's like, I didn't bring the right records to do the performance that you want. Because they wanted
Yeah,
like the
right.
real, yeah. And but like
Yeah,
he
yeah.
still tore it up that night. So, you
That's
know.
funny. Yeah.
So like so in terms of like how did you get into the battling? Because I remember, I know you through like we mentioned before, Pascarosa and Narcotics and like
Yeah,
Monarchy and all that
yeah.
stuff. When did you start when I did my battling back in the day, I got into it through the Scribble Jam DVDs. And it was the
Yep.
days of Brother Ali and Mac Lethal and
One of my brother, at least one of
Awkwards.
my favorite rappers, also, by
Yeah.
the way. One of
Yeah.
my absolute favorites.
Idea. And so like those were the days that people were coming off. So allegedly coming off the top of their head. I mean, and so I unfortunately I broke my girlfriend's heart like a couple weeks ago, and I explained to her that the people when all the modern battles she's seen, they weren't coming off the
Yeah.
top of their head.
Yeah.
And she
No,
was
no,
like,
no. I
wait,
mean,
what?
yeah, like we add freestyles into it some more than others, obviously
Right,
rebuttals.
right.
Um, so to go back
So
to your question, the reason battle rap. So the first rap battle I remember seeing was Idea versus Shells, 2000, 14 years old. It was a very pivotal
RIP
moment in my
Idea.
life, that time period in my life. The Blaze battles on HBO.
Yeah.
And I remember then, like, I didn't watch it live as it happened, but my buddy had showed it me online. Like, this is before YouTube. I don't know. Actually, to go back to Acrobatic, but that was the first battle I remember seeing, like physically a video of as Shell Idea versus Shells, and Idea became one of my favorite. He goes, "I'm the reason your little sister's half white," and I'll never forget that part. Was just fuck. I remember being in my buddy's living room, being like, "Fuck!" But I'm sure you remember UndergroundHipHop.com.
Oh God,
They
yeah.
used to have the audios
West.
of a lot of battles from the
Yes.
freestyle. So they had Acrobatic versus Sage Francis
Oh my
on the
God.
audio, and I listened to that 100 times because, like, okay, so I bought this album, like I said, and I started just hunting down. So Mr. Liff, who I immediately loved his
Oh
voice,
God,
loved his
yeah.
tone,
He's amazing.
him, Acrobatic, and Esoteric. I immediately,
Yeah. Those are
again,
the three
just
guys that we had.
still new to the internet. I just started searching anything I could find from these guys, and I stumbled across undergroundhiphop.com. I think someone had told me to check it out,
Yeah.
and the idea of battle is just I always loved. Even back before that, I loved diss tracks like
Oh
Cannabis
yeah.
versus Cannabis and LL,
LL.
and
Yeah.
like No Vaseline and all that shit. Hit 'em up, like
Yes.
I always just loved the idea of that, like the
Yeah.
combat of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was like that website was very inspirational to me. Like that battle in particular, Esoteric versus I'm sorry,
Acrobat. I gotta look
Acrobatic
that one
versus
up.
Sage
I'm sure I
Francis.
heard it back in the day because I was in those same
Yeah,
sections, those same, I used to
yeah,
write
dude, it
reviews
was
for undergroundhiphop.com
yeah, yeah.
under the name
I still
DJ
remember.
Timid.
Yeah, I still remember. He goes, Sage Francis caught you on the internet jerking off to cage dances.
I do remember that. Yes.
And then I remember Sage Francis like talking about how he goes, "All right, Acro, I heard that flow at the last show and the one before that though."
Yeah.
And he's like, "You're gonna talk like it was called the Super Bowl
Super
battle."
Bowl. I believe the Super Bowl. Oh
And
yeah.
that was the year, I believe it was the same year that Jin, who was
Jin
the
and
biggest thing in
Esoteric.
the world as
Yep.
far as battle rap, went and lost to a guy named Alias.
Oh
And
yes. Yes.
and that was like a huge deal. Like even being an outsider, like not old enough to go to those events, I heard about it. It's like, oh, Jin came to Boston and lost. And that was a
Yeah.
big deal. He battled SO, and SO Revenue. He goes, I know you saw my battle with Jin. That's why you ran like the wind and jumped out of your skin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was, and even like back then, like it instantly became hooked at the idea of two dudes battling.
Yeah.
And like, so when I
Jin
started
was
rapping,
nasty too.
Jin was great.
God, I have a bunch of his
Remember,
mixtapes that I still listen to. Like,
I
they're
still
so
remember
nasty.
like the second. So he won the first week of 106 and Park, and then the next week he battled Sky Zoo, which
Yes.
went on to become a great one. Another guy I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of. So Sky Zoo knew he was battling an Asian, so he came in and did all these Asian jokes, and I'll never forget. Jin just goes, something. This is a reminder. Look at your jersey. It probably says "Made in China." And
Yeah.
it was fucking over again. Like,
Yeah.
because those
It's
freestyle
just,
days, you had 30 to 60 seconds. You land one bar like that,
yeah,
it was
that's all.
over.
Right. Because then the crowd's
Um,
gonna start going nuts and then the
yeah,
bell's gonna ring. It's like,
and the time didn't stop. when the
Right.
crowd went nuts. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
if you're in a crowd, if you spin one bar and the crowd goes nuts for 30 seconds, you know, that's it. That's all anyone remembers.
Right. Yep.
So go back to your question. I heard that. I was already writing rhymes when I heard this album, like I said. And after I learned that people from Massachusetts could put out vinyls, could perform at places like Hempfest in front of
Right.
20,000 plus people, I was like, that's it. Like, this is what I want to do. This is something I'm going to start actively pursuing. And a couple other people were like, oh, if you're going to rap, you got to battle. You got to battle. So then I seen the idea battle and stuff. It just became an addiction to me. And again, like you, I did some of the freestyle tournaments back in the day. I was pretty good. I was more of like, I was the party battler. Like, I used to go from like high school to high school and shit and battle kids. And if I'm from the suburb south of Boston, so there wasn't a lot of rappers.
Right.
But I would go to I remember going to like Brockton High and like battling everybody. I would go to any place I could around. Like, if I heard there was a battler in your high school, I was going to your
That's
high
what it was
school.
like. Yeah. It would be like, well, these are the group of people that I drink with, and once one of them had a friend over, and their friend says they know someone that battles in the group of people they drink with, and then eventually those two people merge.
Dude, it's funny you say that. I remember I was at a party one night, and there was this kid. I don't remember where he was from, but he was down in my area of town, and he's yo, I'm the next rapper around the restaurant. And all of a sudden, my phone rings. I'm at one party, like, you guys come to this party, and I'm like, yo, I'm at the
like the bat signal.
I was trying to go. I was trying to go with this girl all the time. I'm like 16, 17, and like he's like, he's like, yo, this kid's talking mad shit, and I was like, yo, sweetheart, I was like, we gotta go, and we brought the entire we brought the entire fucking party to this other party, and I remember just destroying this kid. And like, it was like a very definitive moment. That was like one of those moments where I was like, all right, like I'm on to something here. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I did a couple of the tournament battles. I never won any big ones doing that. I had a couple of good showings. I remember what's his name? Big Shug. I remember doing one in Big Shug was one of the judges, and he said I lost, and he said I lost that, and it like broke my heart. I was like, oh, Big Shug said I lost.
Yeah. Mike Styles did that to me once too. He was like, sorry, man.
Yeah. At the time, it was like devastating. So then I kind of I started doing the music very heavily, because obviously, I wanted to be a musician. But I stayed battling. Like I said, I was more of a party battler. Loved the freestyles and stuff like that. And then back about 10, 11 years ago, I, realized music wasn't it. So I kind of fucking completely stopped writing, stopped doing everything for a little bit. And then I was familiar with like Smack DVD and there used to be a thing called Fight Club, which was based on it. They had a show on MTV2. I don't know if you remember Nims, who now does like, he's now blowing up now with like the hats and the whole like, yo, don't ever disrespect me shit on the internet. And I loved that dude. I loved Serious Jones is on there. Jin was on there. And so that was kind of like my first taste of like the written battles, but I didn't know, like, you could tell some people were freestyling, some people were written.
Right.
And I was like, wow, these guys are the most amazing freestyles I've ever heard.
Right.
Not realizing that it was written. And then so whatever. So fast forward about a little over 10 years ago, I'm not really doing a lot of rap. I'm still popping out the scene to show support because again, I fucking love it. Right. And Maroney or Aztec and Ed OG started Grind Time New England. And Grind Time at the time was the biggest written battle league in the world. They, hundreds of thousands of views and millions and millions of views. Like Thesaurus, Iron Solomon, all these fucking legends were all in that. Yeah. And I was kind of like half-ass following it, kind of. So they're like, oh, it's all written battles. And, I was like, written battles? I'm like, that's not.
You're cheating.
You're cheating. You're cheating. You know what I mean? And so they threw the event and I went and I was like, it's Aztec. I'm a big fan of Aztec.
Oh, Aztec is, Aztec.
Amazing, and Ed OG is fucking Ed OG. You know what I mean? Like,
he's Boston
so between
legend.
the two of them, I was like, and a tip off. I was like, yo,
I'm
gonna go. So I went without really expectations. And Maroney, shout out to Maroney, battled Martial Law, who actually just passed away. R.I.P. Martial Law, a fucking outstanding rapper and someone who became a good friend after all these years. And I remember the first, like, there was a couple other battles, the kids weren't very good. And then when they started rapping, like, you could tell they were the two that were actually good. You know what I mean? And within about 8 bars, I was like, oh, I would kill these. I was like, all right, because now I got what it is. I was like, oh, I would fucking destroy in these. And my now brother-in-law, one of my best friends, Chris, I had told him, I was like, yo, I'm gonna do these things. They're written a cappella battles. And he laughed. He goes, did they invent those just for you? As
it's
a
basically
white guy,
a wrestling promo that rhymes.
As a white, like I said, because I wasn't the best at freestyling on beats. And even if you listen to some of my old music, I was so punch heavy and I was always rushing that sometimes I would get off beat. I got the white guy rhythm. But But when I would rap those same verses a cappella, like even when we would do shows, like I did 100,000 hip hop shows, I would always do a cappellas, and I would see that got the most reaction.
Yeah, I used
So
to do
when
the
I went
same
to the
thing because I used to try to rap too fast and I used to try to cram too many bars in. And when
yeah,
I gave people
yeah.
a chance to listen, I got a much better reaction.
Yeah, yeah, and I never really understood the 4 bar measure, the 1, 2, 3, 4 punch, because that
Yeah,
wasn't how
yeah,
I wrote back then. I wrote like I said, trying to cram everything into the punch. But I realized when I would do the acapellas of the shows, people's eyes would light up and whatnot. So I went to this grind time event, saw it, and I was like, all right, like I can do this. And I like I said, I wasn't even really writing raps at the time. I kind of like fell back from music, and that like re-sparked my interest. So I reached out to Aztec about doing that, and actually Maroney, I was actually at Chase and Paso Rosa, obviously. I
yeah.
was at their apartment at the time, and Maroney was booking battles for an event with Chilla Jones that he was doing. It was a trout event. And he literally was on the phone. He's like, oh, yeah, we're locking this date to this date. And he looks at me and goes, dude, you want to try out? And I was like, yeah, fuck it, sign me up. Like, put my name on the
Yeah.
list. And I went and I battled this kid named K9 and wiped the floor with him. And that was it. It was off and running from there. You know what I mean? Like, I got booked. They were like, all right, we're doing another one next month. And I battled martial law at the next one. And then that was it. It was off and running from there. It became a straight up addiction. Like the feeling of, where there's no beat, there's no nothing. It's just you and your words. Like,
Right.
You got nothing to fall back on. Like, like I always talk about people like, oh, like would you battle like this person, I'm about like big rappers and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, because you hear a song, they can spend 6 months working on that song. They can
Right.
rehearse that rhyme 100 times. They got a beat behind them. They got ad libs behind them. They got studio effects. I get one take. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, and there's something special about being able to kill that one take. And when you say a fucking punchline, the crowd literally explodes. It's a feeling that I can't describe it to anything else other than drugs. You know what I mean? Like
It's the difference between like saying a funny line in the movie and being a stand-up comedian that has
exactly, yeah,
yeah.
like exactly, like that's how the only way I can best describe it is like I've never done stand-up comedy, but I plan on transitioning to that someday.
Yeah, you definitely could. Yeah. It's a lot of
It's
the
something
shared
I think about.
skills.
It's something I think about more and more. I got a couple of jokes written in my phone that every once in a while, like, mainly just stories. I tell stories from time to time, and
Yeah.
when I tell certain stories from my past and people laugh, I kind of make note of it. Like, all right, I can turn that into a
It would also be
like
kind of funny to go up on stage and just sort of like roast people in the crowd through battle
oh,
rap. If
100%,
people wouldn't know what was
100%.
happening, but once they cut up to you, they'd think it was great.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
So back to the point of wrestling. So there was a local wrestling promotion, and because they're like doing battle rap, I'm a very reference heavy style for people who aren't familiar. Like I do a lot of nostalgia bars, and I do a lot of
Yeah.
wrestling references.
I love shit like that too.
Again, martial law. Ironically, he came up to me one day. He goes, "Yo, you're the king of wrestling bars, right?" And when he said that, I was like, "All right, like this
Yeah.
is I'm gonna run with it." I was like, "All right, like." So I tried to top myself doing it. So that became a thing. I started marketing it, making T-shirts and stuff. So a friend of mine had reached out and he was like, "Hey, I'm doing my buddy Sean Smoke. He was doing audio visual for a local wrestling promotion back in 2019. He's like, I mentioned them to you. He's like, long story short, I went out there, met with the guys, and they were going to give me a job as a manager heel, which is something I always wanted to do. And that was the
Oh
gimmick.
my
They're like,
God.
I met them. They're like, well, what do you want to do? They're like, do you want to rap? And I'm like, I don't want to rap. I don't want to. They asked me if I wanted to battle at an event. And I was
Yeah.
like, listen, here's my thing. Like the way my battle rap style with no beat, it's a cappella, it's written. If you're not a battle rap crowd, it doesn't always go over well.
Right.
You know
You
what I
need the
mean?
right,
So I
you
was like,
need people to be sort of respective of the timing. The crowd
yeah,
has to
like
like,
yeah,
they have to
and
understand when to be quiet and when to speak up. And the wrestling crowd
exactly.
doesn't
And
get to get that.
it only takes one guy go fuck you, and that's it.
Right.
You lost the crowd. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
So I was like, no, here's my idea. So I pitched this idea to them where they would bring me out, like, oh, and I would just start roasting the crowd. But I was going to do it with like wrestling bars, but not as
Right. Yeah.
bars. You know what I mean? Just like wrestling jokes. Like
Yeah.
I remember I was like, oh, I was the biggest group of losers since the Job Squad. You know what I mean? Just like
Yeah. Yeah.
stupid shit like
Kind
that.
of like
And
what
then
John Cena would end up doing at some point,
yeah, yeah, but like it wasn't even going to be rapping. It was just going to be straight up insulting the crowd.
Oh
And
yeah.
then
Okay. Yeah.
and then they were going to have a baby face, a good guy, come out and defend the crowd and fucking snuff me. And then a bad guy would come out and fight. And then that would set up a relationship between me and the bad guy to be his heel. But COVID happened and that completely shut that down. I'm still hoping to do it at some point to get back and to do that. It's always been a goal of mine to at least step in a wrestling ring once and get hit with a chair.
I mean, it's like I'm hardly ever envious of other rappers, but when I see someone like Conway the Machine, like front row at AEW and like rapping someone at the stage, and I'm just like, yeah, you know what? I have to admit, like I
Yeah,
wish
right.
that's something I'm
Yeah,
like
like
that.
West
It's
Side
so
Guns talking about
dorky too.
WrestleMania and 30 chains. I'm like, fuck.
I know.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though is I remember I hadn't watched. I kind of fell out of wrestling for a while, and I fell out of popular music. And I watched WrestleMania one year, and now I watch tons of it. But Machine Gun Kelly came out. He was the first time I'd ever seen him, and I have to say he was god awful. And I
Yeah.
remember going to the person next to me. I'm like, all right, that was terrible, but at least I'm never going to see that person again.
Yeah.
And
And
I
then
was
little do you know.
little
So
did
it's
I know.
funny. So I also, again, back to this album. So when I was about 12, 13, I stopped watching wrestling like most of us.
Yeah,
This
discovered
song,
girls and
the
hip hop,
battle, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
And it wasn't cool. It
And
wasn't,
wrestling was,
this is
and
right
that
at
was
the
another
end,
time
although
wrestling
this is
wasn't
right
as
at the
good
end of the
anymore.
DX shit, which was when it was cool as fuck.
Right. Once
But yeah,
WCW and ECW went away, it was like kind of
yeah,
garbage for a while.
you went to high school, you didn't want to be the kid who watched wrestling. But
Right.
that
Right.
so that song brought back a lot of nostalgia to me. But then when Marshall and other people be like, "Yo, you're the king of that, you're the king of these wrestling bars," I kind of was like, "All right, like." I started. I love wrestling documentaries. Like I
Me
started
too.
watching like
I'll
Dark
oh
Side
god,
of the Ring, the
yes.
Tales of the Territory that just came out. I don't know if
Yes,
you're
with
familiar
the
with that.
rocked one. I've only seen the
Yeah,
first one. I gotta watch if there's more of those, I need to watch those like
yeah.
ASAP.
There's 2 episodes now.
I'll have
I
to
think the
watch
third
the
one comes out
others.
this week. And then
I've
I
seen
mentioned
every wrestling documentary.
I mentioned earlier I broke my foot in April, so I was laid up for months, and I have Peacock on fucking cable,
Oh yeah.
which is WWE Network.
Yeah.
I
I watched
watched
a bunch of
every
Saturday Night
fucking
main events recently.
yes,
Yeah.
dude, and they have all the old ECWs. They have all the old
Yes.
WCWs. I watched every fucking documentary they had because I had nothing fucking to do. You know, I
Yeah,
was going
yeah. And
crazy.
the Eddie Guerrero
Um,
one's amazing. The CM Punk one's great.
oh,
Like there's so
they're
many good
fucking
ones.
great. But so fast forward to I'm at the tail end of I'm back on my feet. I'm back walking, but I'm still not at work yet, and and I'm going fucking stir crazy. And AEW was doing an event in Worcester, so I hit
Yes.
up one of my buddies. I was, yo, will you go to a wrestling event with me? I hit up Nick first. I asked Nick, I was, yeah, you want to go to a wrestling event with me? And he's like, not really. So I hit up one of my battle rap buddies, my buddy Pharaoh. Shout out to Pharaoh. And I was like, yo, let's go to a wrestling event. It was like a Wednesday night, which I wouldn't have gone if I was at
Yeah.
work.
It was a
I was,
dynamite.
but
Yeah.
I was still not working. I was fresh off crutches. And we went and had a fucking blast, dude. It was
Yeah.
one of the funnest times. Like fucking Chris Jericho was there and shit, which
Yeah.
was the man when we were little
I
kids. You
love
know what I mean? So
AEW.
dude, I had a fucking blast. And it's literally through battle rap of trying to like top my own wrestling bars. Because I had to be like, all right, like, I had to be like obviously the Mr. Perfect shit, everyone remembers that, but I started like
Yeah.
kind of refresh my memory of it. So I started rewatching these old documentaries, even old matches, and I fucking fell in love with it. Like I feel like a kid again. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's awesome.
What's
Yeah.
what a couple of you I was trying to think of some of my wrestling bars that I have. What are a couple of yours? We'll go back and forth with you. So
Well, my personal ones.
yeah, some of your favorite ones that you've done. So it's just occurring to me now that there's some people listening to this that might not even know what we're talking about in terms of bars, but it's just like we're just talking about like lines, like just
Yeah.
from songs, like give me a couple of yours.
I mean, we're talking about the 40 bar style. So off the top of my head, one of the lines I had to get, which is again, it's such like a bar. If you don't know wrestling, it's like I said something like I'll Shawn Michaels super kick your kid in the head. I was like, think wrestling personas. I'll put a heel against your baby face, which a heel is a bad guy and a baby face is a good guy. But
Right.
like heel your foot up on a heel against your baby face. It's one of those bars like if you don't get the terminology, it's not that like crazy of a bar. But it's one of those ones that I always think like that's one of my favorites. Like off the top of my head, it's tough to think because I have 40 something battles and there's a wrestling bar in damn near every of them. And like even in music. Even in music before that, I had them, so it's tough to think of the top of my head. Obviously, I'm thinking of the ones because I battled 2 days ago. So my first thought is like whatever ones I said last like 2 days
You don't want
ago.
to get we'll save those when the battle comes out.
Yeah.
I think the ones I had that that I can remember was holy shit, smoke moldy, hole in a donut and cannoli. This track will leave a hole in your ear like Mick Foley.
Yeah. And Mick Foley bars. Which by the way, Mick Foley is the man. I got to meet him a couple years ago.
There was I drove by a McDonald's not far from me like last year, and the sign on front said Cactus Jack was here.
Okay, so that is not Mick Foley. So
damn it.
Yeah, I know, right? I was fucking shocked to learn that. So Travis Scott, the rapper Travis Scott.
Oh,
he has Cactus Jacks, which is his like shoes.
Right, I knew that.
And they had the Cactus Jacks meal.
I forgot he did that.
Same thing. I saw the same thing. I was like, I was
Because
like,
I
what
figured,
the
because I know
fuck?
Mick Foley's probably comes through the area to do signings and stuff. I'm
Oh
like, and
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he goes McDonald. Like the pieces were all there. Like,
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, he looks like he eats McDonald's.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm trying to think like other wrestling bars. Like you were saying, the Mr. Perfect, the one I mentioned earlier was like I'm known for the cold wrestling bars, the superstars ice cream. Um, I said something like I'll have you bitch in her underwear like a bra and panties match. I always thought
Oh,
that was
good Lord.
funny.
The one about,
Uh,
yeah, I don't know. Wrestling bars always, it's funny because, like, what you find out with wrestling bars is you find out more people watch wrestling than you think. Because,
oh yeah,
like,
especially these days, it's like cool again. Like, well,
yeah.
like people our age, like again, like I mentioned earlier, my style is a very punch heavy style, and I learned early on that nostalgia bars is kind of my thing. Like I'll always have like 90s Nickelodeon bars, and like like I said, I wasn't watching wrestling much, so I don't really do newer wrestling bars. I've thrown in a couple recently because I started watching again. But for the most part, like all my bars, all my wrestling bars are all based off the 90s, 80s, and early 2000s. Like I remember doing an interview with a kid a few years back, like 2015, and we were talking about wrestling bars, and he asked me, he was like, "Oh, like who do you think is gonna win WrestleMania?" Like WrestleMania was like a week away, and I was like, honestly, I don't know. I don't know who's in
Yeah.
it. And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Dude, I haven't watched wrestling in 10 years." And he
Watching
was like,
wrestling
"What
is a
the
commit.
fuck?"
Watching wrestling is a commitment. It's not.
Yeah,
It's
like
something you have to take a break from.
yeah, yeah. But now now watching the documentaries, it made me just like
I
obsessed
know.
like with watching it again, like knowing like
Oh no.
kids were kind of pieces of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. I
It's like
know.
it makes it even funnier to me. You know what I mean?
It's funny.
Like hearing
The other.
stories of, like Macho Man and all those dudes.
Oh, I know, and all the weird stuff. The other day, I was watching some wrestling news video, and it was mentioned how there's stuff going on with CM Punk now. And my girlfriend was like, "Wait a minute, so what's going on with CM Punk?" And I had to try to distill like 10 years of wrestling history into like a small enough portion where she'll keep listening. And I
Yeah.
was like,
So it's
I was able to tell the story from
yeah,
like him
right. Because if
walking
you
out of
go too much, he's like, all right, I
WWE.
don't care.
Yeah, from like
Yeah,
him going to WWE to him like doing that press conference in about two
yeah.
minutes. I felt very proud.
So it's funny in CM Punk particularly. So like when CM Punk was a thing, I wasn't watching wrestling. So
Oh yeah,
CM
he's one
Punk,
of my
CM
favorites.
CM Punk to me is the guy who got beat up in the UFC. You know
Oh
what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that.
he's into a lot
That
of
to
people.
me
Yeah,
is. I knew his name enough, because he was huge. Like, and even when I didn't watch wrestling, I still, you still hear
yeah,
the names. Like he was a pop culture famous person, and I
yeah,
still had
yeah,
friends. I still had friends who would watch it and would mention it up and like, but I never knew who he was really until like I never knew what he looked like until the UFC. And I was like, oh, this professional wrestlers coming to the UFC, which
yeah.
Brock
And
Lesnar
you
already
look
did
at him
that.
and you're just like, this guy?
Yeah, and Brock Lesnar already did that and did well at it. And
Right.
then he comes in and got
Right. He
fucking
did
destroyed.
I think he did amazing considering all the factors, but that was as far as he was going to go. Like it was like
Yeah.
I think it was pretty impressive he got that far. But that's like the only
I mean, it's impressive
that's
that
the wrestling fan in me talking,
yeah.
because it's
Well,
like
it's
he
impressive. Listen, anybody who steps inside of an
right.
octagon has my respect. I don't care how good or how bad you do. If you
Right.
have the balls to go, I'm gonna step into this fucking octagon in front of a million fucking people, and I'm gonna put my fucking hands up and square off with this kid. You have my
And
respect right
the
off the jump.
willingness and the willing to do the training that other people have to see to allow you in that ring too, because it's
Yeah,
not like you can just choose one day to walk in there. You have to convince a lot of other people and yourself.
yeah. And like, it's funny because I remember like he did two fights and he lost them both in like 2 minutes tops.
Right.
And I remember they asked Dana White after, and he goes, "If he wants to continue his MMA career, it will not be here."
Right. They're like, we've already made our
Like,
CM Punk money. We made,
yeah, like
I'm sure he was a good investment for them. He probably sold some video games
oh,
too.
I'm sure that first pay per view that he was on sold a shitload. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I'm a big, like, it's funny. So, like, when I stopped watching wrestling, I transitioned to becoming an MMA fan. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, which I think was like the normal progression for a
Right.
lot of
Especially because
people.
wrestling then was getting very more geared towards kids. It was that
Yeah,
era where,
and MMA was just kind of blowing up. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like,
And
in
women's
2000,
MMA, that was a huge boost for MMA too.
yeah, like the Ultimate Fighter in 2004, which
Yeah.
again, like I said, I stopped watching wrestling 99, 2000, but all of a sudden 2004, UFC blew up. And actually, it's funny. Like I remember being a big wrestling fan as a kid. My mother used to work at Blockbuster, so she would bring me home VHSs like every other
Yeah.
night, and I would
Yeah.
watch it.
Like the two
I would
tapes of WrestleMania 4 with the
yes,
tournament.
yeah, and
Yes.
I would actually like bootleg them onto like the other ones. I could keep them and stuff.
Yeah.
And I asked her to bring me one home one night, and she brought home UFC one by
Oh
accident.
man.
And I remember putting it in and being like, "This is fucking not."
That was back when they were all fighting with different styles, right? It was
Yeah, there was
like
no
it
rules.
was
Like
like
UFC
Street
one, there was
Fighter.
no
It was like
rules.
one dude would be like a tall like guy in a gi, and another guy would be like a round
Yeah,
dude. Like
the first, the I'll never forget this. The first, I actually watched a documentary about it recently, which is great. The first fight on the first UFC, it's a guy who's about 150 pounds, give or take, a stocky dude against this big fat Abdullah the Butcher looking
Yep.
motherfucker. And the guy fucking kicks the big guy's teeth out. And
That's
it's
exactly
fucking
what I was thinking
brutal.
about. Yeah.
It goes viral every couple years, and people are
Yeah.
like, "This is what UFC used to look like."
I
And
know. It
it was
seemed
fucking great.
barbaric. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. But I remember like being like 8 or maybe 10, and like my mother brought that home, and I was like, "This is not
Yeah. It's
wrestling."
not wrestling.
But I was like intrigued also. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I was like, "This is fucking gruesome."
Yeah. So
Um,
I'm gonna do the version of this with words. Which is so what's funny. So I mean, you're like brutal with a bar. Like it's like I mean, I love your style, and like you just like it's like, but like it's. I was watching one today. I think it was with City Tower, and I couldn't tell
that was my
whether
dude.
he was drunk or playing drunk. But
Yeah,
he was either doing a good job of playing drunk or actually doing a good job of battling while drunk. But I was
yeah,
but like you could tell you guys, there was love there and stuff. Like,
yeah,
what is
yeah,
it? What is it? I mean, you talked about before, like back in like those days of like Cage, Copyright, Esoteric, and like these weren't even people we even knew. The people we listened to, we were like, "Yo, man, what's up?" Like, how did it
yeah.
get to the point where it's no longer like that? Is it just that the battle rappers are getting older and that they're less likely to be that in their own personal life, or is it just like people just chilled out?
Well, the battle rap
Is it
shit.
now that weed is legal as nobody cares?
Well, no, like so it's different. Like people again, like when I tell people about that, people are like, "Oh, there must be fights at every event." And I'm like,
Yeah,
"No." I'm like, back in the freestyle days, there was, you know what I mean. But even that, it was usually the rappers' friends who fought. Like
yeah, yeah.
the thing with battle rap these days is, especially in New England, which I love the New England battle scene. It's a very small knit. You know what I mean? Like doing hip hop shows, you would do a show with a kid and never see that kid ever again. You know what I mean? Like whether he was still performing, still doing music, whatever, I never see that kid ever again. In
Right.
battle rap, it's a smaller knit community, so you see the same faces at these events. You know what I mean? So it's less likely to have a problem with the kid, unless you have a legit problem with the kid. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know what I mean? But like City Towers, for instance, shout out to City Towers. I was with him on Saturday at the event I did. I fucking love that kid. He's a stand up person in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like I had met him probably 5 to 6 years before we battled, and we just kept seeing each other events, and we always fucking kicked it. Smoking in the parking lot, drinking. We just always kept in touch, and he has gone on to do much more successful in battle rap than I ever has. He's been able to touch these big stages all around the world and stuff. And I was always like, yo, like I think me and you would be a good battle, and we
Yeah.
ended up making it happen. So that's why also why that battle wasn't like too like mean. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like because it was more of like a friendly like
But there's also like in the same
sparring.
way
You know
with
what I
like
mean?
pro wrestling where it's like you want different type of matches on the card. With battles, it's like that's the beauty of the pre-written battle is that there can be different type of battles on the card. Is that like the relationships are different between the people. So you're kind of getting, it's not just a race to your best yo mama joke. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's like, and it's
yeah,
not just making fun of someone's sneakers all day long.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
we've all had
yeah, yeah,
sneakers that look better at different points. It's like, but now it's
yeah,
like you're going back to people's Facebook pages and finding a bad outfit they had, and like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or like we were talking about before, like back in the freestyle days, like he ain't a gangster. His real name is Clarence. Like that
yes,
could be the biggest fucking haymakers knowing someone's real name.
yeah,
Now in battle rap, people literally will pull up your entire life. You know what I mean? Like I've seen people pull up people's police reports and shit. Like I've seen people, dig up dirt, which isn't my style really.
nah.
But
What's like the
I mean,
wildest stuff you've seen at like battles and stuff?
I don't know off the top of my head. Like I said, I wasn't there for it, but this dude Big K pulled out the dude's police report where he had snitched on a guy, and he fucking
Oh my,
handed out the fucking police report to everybody. And he was like, "All right, like let's all read along," and it
oh
was
my,
wild.
did it
And he
go
did it.
over?
Oh yeah, so he did it like, which is like in battle rap, there's kind of like this unwritten thing where people tend to take the third round as like a big angle, like you're exposing someone in your threat. No, he was like, "I'll go first. All right, everybody," and so it completely like this guy tried to spit 3 rounds of gangster bars after that, and it was just I mean, like
Yeah,
no
what are
one
you gonna
wanted to hear.
do? It's like,
Yeah, like
yeah,
no one wanted to
you've
hear your
been
gun
beat,
bars
you've been
after that.
outclassed. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it didn't even matter how much the rhyme was. Like that was one of the craziest things I've seen. My boy City Towers, ironically, the first time I seen him battle, he battled a kid named Dorico, who's another good friend of mine. And again, like this is kind of the earlier days. He exposed him for working at Dunkin' Donuts, and he had taken his shirt off, and he had a photo. Apparently, like they went through the drive-through, and he was
Oh,
like,
and like took a
and
picture.
he had taken a photo of him like handing his coffee through the drive-through. And at the time, it was like Dude, it was fucking hilarious, bro. Like it was one of those things like I
It's
think
so
back on
funny.
it once in a
It's like
while.
I'm hearing
It
about it
was
now. I'm still
so,
laughing about
dude,
it.
it was so well played. It was just so funny because like he can really rap. Like he's not just like a joke rapper. Like so he
Right.
the whole rhymes leading up to it were all great. And he was like, hey, this mother, and he took his shirt off, dude, and it fucking you had the photo of him handing the coffee, which is one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
That's just like what's so
Um,
great about battle rap is that it's sort of part roast, like part comedy roast, and you're part stand-up comedian because it's really just you with a microphone. You got nothing on to back you up. And it's like you're almost putting, and it's part wrestling too, because it's like in some degree ways it's kind of it's a staged fight. You don't really
yeah,
have
I
beef with this person, you know.
listen. You just said the exact thing I say all the time. Like the reason the bigger metaphor of the wrestling wise is because battle rap is wrestling to me. Like we have fake names, we have fucking fake problems with each other, and we're
Right.
gonna fake talk about killing each other. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and then you were talking about before. Like I always tell people like, oh, like if you're not a rap fan at all, I don't recommend going to a battle rap event. But if you
Right.
are a casual rap fan or a hip hop head, I always tell people I'm like it's a mix between a comedy show and a rap concert. A good rap battle should be a little bit of both. You should
Yeah.
see rap skills, and in my opinion, you should see at least a little bit of comedy added. You know what I mean? Like, yes, the etiquette of a comedy show. You can't go to a comedy show, sit in the back, and fucking talk shit the whole time. And you shouldn't do that at a battle event either. You kind of have to have the etiquette of this
Right.
man's on stage. We are here for him right now. Whereas
Right.
opposed to a hip hop show, the beat's playing, you can sit in the back and talk all day. So, like I always say, it's a mixture of those two. And if you enjoy those two, you'll love battle rap. If you kind of like stand up and you kind of like rap, it might not be for you. But if you're a fan of both, I strongly recommend going. And there's nothing like seeing it live either. Like you can
Right.
watch it on YouTube and that's cool, but like to be in the building when a moment like that happens, or like like I said, when someone lands that fucking haymaker,
Oh man.
it's that room
This
like literally some of these small bars, you literally can feel the place fucking shake. You know what I mean? Like it's I love it obviously because I'm addicted to it, but that's an atmosphere that I love. You know
So
what I mean?
so when you're writing your verses, do you know the ones that are going to hit? Like, are you often surprised when one hits like too hard? Because I'm sure there are ones that you think are genius that people don't hear. Because that's
Oh, dude,
every
that is
rapper's got those. They're like, no,
dude,
no,
it's
no. Let me pause and tell you what I just said.
dude,
You
it
know?
is heartbreaking when you
Yeah,
write a bar that you think is going to be huge and it doesn't fucking hit. I've seen rappers choke because of it. Because like
yeah.
sometimes,
You're like, what? You don't
so
watch
yes,
Buffy the Vampire Slayer? What?
yeah.
Like, you
Dude,
know?
one of the worst things you could do is think, oh, what, y'all don't get that? Y'all don't get it? Y'all don't get it?
Right.
Like I've seen people do that, and yeah, like obviously, when I write, like if I think it's good, I assume other people think it's good, and every once in a while I write a bar, I'm like, oh,
It's
that's
gonna
gonna
kill.
shake the room, and a lot of the times I'm right, but when I'm not, it sucks.
Yeah.
Like when you like get that punch and it's just crickets, and like sometimes the crowd's bigger than others, sometimes the crowd's different,
Right.
like I've done battles at events where the crowd just wanted to hear jokes, and if I didn't have jokes, it wasn't hitting, and vice versa. But yeah, like sometimes I read a bar that I don't expect to be the biggest reaction, but for some reason it just fucking hits. And
Sometimes you just need the one guy in the crowd that really gets it to react, and then
dude,
you're
it's
like, oh,
so
then you're like, okay, that's good for a bunch of people online, you
dude,
know?
it's so funny you say that because me and my buddy, this dude Speen, a battle rapper friend of mine, we have this ongoing joke where we try to write a bar that only one person reacts to. Like it's like if I can get just one person to go, oh, but the
Yeah,
entire rest of the room doesn't get, I fucking love it. It's
it's a
like
great sound to have in the back.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like a weird inside joke because odds are that one bar is the bar the guy fucking remembers. You know what I mean?
because it's
Like years ago. I don't know if you're familiar with this guy Lush One. He's a battle rap promoter. He was actually involved in the Scribble Jam shit back in the day. So he was in a movie, the movie Time Cop, with his father directed the movie Time Cop.
I just watched that recently because that this podcast, How Did This Get Made, and they do bad movies, and
Yes,
I've
yes,
watched 292 of the 300 movies on that during quarantine, and Time Cop was one
yes.
of them. And Time Cop
So
is amazing.
so there's a scene where he goes back in time. He's at Wall Street, and a little kid hands him a newspaper. So that is
Yes.
Lush One. Lush One
Oh,
grew up to
really?
become 100%. He grew up to become one of the biggest battle rap promoters in the world. So in a battle, I said, what was the exact part? I was like, I'm a Lush holding paper like time. You can see the kid's a Lush holding paper like time cop.
Wow.
And
Yeah, you're like that's a one
I
percenter. Yeah.
yeah. So Voorhees, TD3, his partner Jason Voorhees.
Shout out to
Jason
TD.
Weeks is his real name. He fucking, he's the one. He's the only one in the crowd who reacts. And the next day he posts that quote on like the Facebook group, and everyone's like, I don't get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
And people like some people are like, oh, like that, and I was like, yo, it's not for everyone. Like and he's like, the point, and some kid was like, the point of battle rap is to make sure that everybody gets the punch. I'm like, maybe that's your point.
please explain to me the point,
Yeah.
please.
And he was like, oh, that's stupid. Only like, and I'm like, listen, here's the thing. Boy, he sat front row for an entire night of battle rap. That was the only bar he quoted online.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? He didn't go and write down, like, he reacted to hundreds of bars that night, but that was the only bar that the next morning he woke up and decided to type out online.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because it was one of those bars like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Because it's a bar that no one else got. And that was the moment where I realized, was like, that means something. Like,
Yeah.
He might have been the only one who got it, but he fucking got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
well, that's actually interesting because, like, so when you mentioned like a event you did where they were really looking for jokes. I mean, you've prepared whatever you prepared, I'm sure, weeks in advance, or I don't know if you do on the drive there or whatever, but it sounds like it's
yeah,
well
I
thought
got a
out.
formula. Like I'm always done writing 1 week before the battle.
Okay.
Like I got like a set regimen. You know what
So
I
do you
mean?
ever find yourself in a room and have to adjust? And if you do, is that like, you know, is it too late, or like, I'm sure sometimes somebody does have a goofy hat and you got to talk about it,
Yeah, like again, I'm from the freestyle era, so like I always try to add a good rebuttal or a good freestyle. Like, yeah,
because the crowd knows you're doing that and they give you extra points. It's sort of like you're extra points for difficulty, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, like, but like at the end of the day, like my 3 rounds are written, so I can't like just throw them out the window. I'm not the best freestyler, so I'm not just gonna throw those rounds in the rinse. Sometimes you kind of just gotta like, bite down your mouth guard and fucking let's go. You know what I mean?
like this. Hopefully the comment section is nice.
Yeah, and just hope that the room might not like it, but hopefully the people on fucking online do. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's something else.
Sometimes,
like they don't
sometimes the room just ain't on your side. You know what I mean?
So that was something too that I didn't realize till a few years ago. They don't really declare winners in most of these battles too.
Now most of them became what we call just promo battles. Like so the battle I did the other day is part of a tournament that it's just like the old school freestyle tournaments, but it's throughout the course of 4 events. Right. So obviously those are the judge. I got the judge win over a kid named Lockhart. Utmost respect to Lockhart, that a great kid and a great battler.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm on to the semifinals against a kid named Hoodie Kruger, who's a fucking another great battler and a great kid. Like like we were saying earlier, like, you see the same faces at a lot of these events. So I become friends with a lot of these people. But I'm really looking forward to that battle because he's someone I feel like this battle should have happened a long time ago. So I'm glad to fucking do it. But yeah, most of them, unless there's money on the line, like judge battles are actually doing, like, people are doing them more the last couple of years than they were the last like 8 years. You know what I mean? Like it's finally starting to come back because I think it brings like the competitiveness back. Because a lot of people, like even myself, like I get paid just to rap. Like I show up whether I fucking choke all 3 rounds, whether I do amazing, I'm getting paid my set amount. So some people kind of coast off that. It's like, all right, well, fuck it, I already got paid. Like, yeah, it might hurt your stock for the next battle. They might not pay you as much, but
it's not going to make you a better rapper.
Yeah, some people are very short-sighted with that. Like I said earlier, I have a good career, so I don't chase battle rap money. Like my reputation means more to me than any amount of money I'm gonna get paid. So
it'll keep you going longer. It's the way to be in the long game.
Yeah, for sure. And like I want to come with my 3 best rounds every time because like I always talk about it, like every battle I do, it's someone's first time seeing me.
Right. So which what they say about wrestling too.
If I suck that time, they might never watch me again. You know what I mean? Like so. Obviously life happens. I've had a couple battles where I wasn't as good as I should have been, in my opinion, but I'm a fucking 36-year-old man with a life. You know what I mean? Sometimes you don't have all that time to write and rewrite. You know what I mean?
That must be a weird type of pressure because I've always thought, ever since battles weren't written, I've always thought about trying to battle again. I'm just like, fuck, man, I'm so tempting to do it, but I'm just like, it just feels like a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
It's so much fucking work.
I think I'm scared I'd go too personal or something and like say something horrible. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's the one way to do it. Like it sucks. It literally consumes so much of my time. Like I always joke, like I'll be out to dinner with my wife and I'll be like, yo, this beef is rare, done. You know what I mean? Like everything is a battle rap bar. It's like, dude, I spend like, usually I have a month to 2 months to prep. And like I said, I take it very serious and I don't want to, I don't want to make a fool of myself. So I think of it a lot. Like I'll be at work. I look like a lunatic at work. So the week before the battle, I apologize. I'm just going to be sick. My fucking nose is running. I'm coughing. I apologize. Sorry. But usually a week before the battle, I'm done writing. So I rehearse it over and over and over and over. So I look like a fucking lunatic walking around like fucking mumbling to myself. Like,
yeah.
It takes a lot of fucking time out of your day to do it. And then like you kind of got to promote. You got to do the wrestling aspect of it. You got to promote. You got to talk shit. Then it finally comes out. You got to share it. You got to fucking convince people to watch it.
Right.
Dude, that's why a lot of the battlers don't make music anymore. Because like, dude, there's no fucking free time left to do that. But
Right.
like what you were saying, like making music, like I can spend 6 months working on a song. Like I have a bunch of songs I started during quarantine and haven't fucking finished yet. But
Yeah.
like I signed up to a battle December 10th. I need to have 3 2-minute rounds ready, rehearsed, and prepared to battle Hoodie Kruger. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so
And it's your
it's a lot
reputation
more
on the
stressful.
line, it's also you owe him that respect to show up and be
Yeah,
prepared.
exactly. Yeah, and in this case, it's $4,000 on the line also. So
That's another good motivation.
another
Yeah.
nice little chunk of change. You know
I'm
what I mean?
kind of,
Like,
are
so
you surprised there isn't a bigger, I mean, maybe I'm just unaware of it, but like, I'm always surprised when I see how big of like video game tournaments I've become and how much money that generates, and that it hasn't really been anything similar to that level with hip hop battles. Cause it seems
well, there
like,
is. So I mean, back in the day, Scribble Jam, the source won 50
right.
grand in Scribble Jam. So
Yeah, but then they went out
URL,
of business though.
yeah, because they gave the source 50 grand.
Right. Yeah.
So there's Smack URL, which is the biggest league in America right now, in the world right now. I don't know if you remember the old Smack DVDs back in
Yeah,
the
I do
day.
remember.
So they
Who are some of their top artists that people may know or heard of?
so right now Geechee Gotti, Rum Nitty,
Yep.
Murder Mook is still popping around. He was from back in the
Really?
DVD days.
Yeah, I remember that name.
Loaded Lux from back
Yep.
in the days. He's still, these guys are kind of
They've made a
the
career out
goats
of
of
it.
it. Yeah, and so they did a tournament a year or two ago, and they gave out 100K. King of the Dot just did a tournament. They partnered with Twitch, ironically,
Oh, there
that
you
does
go.
the video game streaming. Twitch sponsored it. They put up 100K to the winner. This dude Bill Collector, who I battled before,
I
ended up
watched that
winning
battle
that.
today. Yeah.
Great battle. Bill Collector is
Yeah. That was a great
an
battle.
insanely entertaining person.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
ended up winning that. So he won
He seemed like a
100K
really
off that.
good sport.
Yeah. He's a dude. He's a fucking funny
Was
bastard
that
too.
the battle you had the line about Biggie and Pac riding shotgun?
No, that was against City.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that
All
was
right.
against
All
City.
right.
That was
Yeah.
like something
Yeah.
something.
I did watch both of them play. Yeah.
I'm in the back seat because both Biggie and Pac got hit sitting shotgun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like
That stopped the show for a minute.
That was one. So again, that was one of those ones where I wrote that. I was like, oh, that's gonna fucking
Yeah,
hit.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I
You're
mean?
like,
And
yeah.
it did. And I was like, yes. But yeah, it was, every once in a while you kind of like you've done this long enough, you kind of expect certain bars to hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 Uh, so it's really, so it's like, you think it's Smack, whatever, that's really like the biggest national, like if people want
Oh
to
yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, they're the biggest thing going. They have so YouTube kind of I'm sure you're familiar with the YouTube like monetization and everything.
yeah.
All of battle rap existed on YouTube for 15 years. And then when they kind of stopped giving people the same kind of sponsor money, URL got an app, their own app, which I pay $8 a month to subscribe to. I don't even watch it half the time, but
Yeah, I remember,
I
like most
support the
apps.
culture, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I throw them the $8 a month. And then they partnered with another streaming service called Caffeine, which Drake is apparently some sort of partner with them in that. I'm not quite sure. So they stream all their pay-per-views through that, and then the battles go to their app. And like
Are they pay-per-view? I guess I did know that. Yeah.
well, so theirs is actually free on Caffeine because they made a deal through them. But like King of the Dot, even the event Chilla did yesterday at that club Sona, is through pay-per-view. They did it through Facebook because they have a thing on Facebook where you can do
Oh
pay-per-view.
yeah. That's
That's
so
where a lot of the
wild. You can
revenue.
do that now. That's so
That's where a
wild.
lot of the revenue comes from is the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Because like I mean, you can only charge so much at the door. You can only get so many
Right.
people in.
And there's only gonna be, yeah, and it's, you're only gonna make so much off the streams. Yeah. That's pretty wild.
Yeah,
So
but that's
you're
where
gonna
like, the big money like really started coming in. Because some of these
yeah.
dudes get URL pays their guys pretty fucking well. You know what I mean? And rightfully so. I
Right. And
remember
they're
there
the
was
ones
a big
bring everybody in.
like one of their pay-per-views had like over 2 million buys. You know what
Holy
I mean?
crap.
Like yeah, like they are no joke. Like
That's,
they
I think,
are
more than like AEW gets in their pay-per-views.
probably yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. Like they are, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like I remember like it was like a big deal at the time. Like, I don't think all of them do that well.
Right.
But at that time, it was a big deal. Like everybody, again, Battle Rap, very small community. So everybody was like, it's kind of like a big congratulations. Like, dude, these guys are
Right.
2 million fucking
Now,
pay-per-views.
is that like when like someone like Joe Budden like dips his foot in? Is that when like
Yeah,
stuff
like
like
Total
that move?
Slaughter and shit.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure that sold a good amount. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, most people who don't know anything about battle rap, if they know one battle over the past 20 years, I'm
It's
guessing
like
you
Joe
know.
Biden's Cassidy did a couple recently, like
Yeah, but
cannabis.
I was gonna say that's what I was getting to cannabis. The
Yeah,
cannabis versus
I'm not a
plastic.
big fan of those like types of battles because like those
Yeah,
people never do as good as like cannabis, particularly like again growing up in the area we grew up in. Cannabis was a feared fucking rapper when we
I
were
know.
younger, and to have him come out and like choke so terribly,
I
like hold
know.
a
In
notepad.
that video online, we were joking before we started about how like every battle rap video has like 10 minutes of like intros. That one has like Busta Rhymes trying to give context to like what you're about to
Yeah,
see, which I always
yeah,
thought was hilarious. Like
yeah. But again, like
disaster
they
could not have
they
been more ready for that moment.
oh my god, he fucking murdered him. He was like, dude, he goes, I feel like I'm putting my own dog to
Dug to
sleep,
sleep. Yeah.
dude.
He's
Dude,
like,
he cannabis came
what am I,
with
Peter
a
Griffin, or
fucking
I keep beefing with this chicken?
yeah, dude. Cannabis came with the arm in a sling, and he was
Yeah.
like, it made. And he goes again, the freestyle. But he goes, it made sense you came here with a sling on because you've never been a good shoulder to
To
lean on.
lean on. Yeah.
And like,
And
dude, it
he's
was
like,
over.
this little jerk off is only 2 minutes in. He's already got his shirt
He got
off.
his fucking
Like,
shirt off. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's just,
yeah.
yeah.
Like
It's just,
I got a buddy, my buddy Jamie, who I used to work with, and he, he's a hip hop head, but he's not a battle rap fan. So like when we first started working together, I was telling him I do battles, and he goes, "Oh yeah, like that's the only battle he ever saw." And I'll never forget this. He goes, "Dude, it was like watching my dad get beat up." Is how he said. Because again, he's our age. Like
yeah.
again, like dude, back in '99, 2000, cannabis was a feared fucking dude as far
He
as
had Mike
you know.
Tyson in his corner. Like,
Yeah, right.
I know.
Fucking eat and feed.
Yeah. And
Uh,
he's,
the end jokes like eat and feed.
I know.
Mike Tyson's the man. I could have done this documentary about. I could have done this conversation about
Oh
Mike
my
Tyson
God.
too. Mike Tyson is one of the most inspirational people I've ever
I'll
met.
tell you,
Which I've had
and
the opportunity to meet recently, and it
oh,
was amazing.
really? Let's talk about
Yeah, I
that.
met him almost exactly a year ago. So it's funny. So in March of 2020, I bought tickets to go meet Mike Tyson at an autograph signing, and then 2 days later, COVID happened,
Oh,
and literally last November, like literally the first week of November, I get an email from the people I bought the tickets from, and they're like, "Oh, Mike Tyson's going to be at the Independent, the Braintree Mall on Sunday at noon. Your ticket's valid then." And this is like Saturday night, and I was like, "Well, I guess that's what I'm fucking doing
yeah. I
tomorrow."
guess if Tyson's
So
gonna, well, if Tyson can be there, what excuse do I have?
yeah, so I went and got the opportunity to meet him, got a handshake. Actually behind me I was gonna see it. My wife had bought me a couple years back a fucking Mike Tyson autographed glove, which is
Oh,
one of my fucking
nice.
favorite gifts my wife ever gave me.
People don't
Um,
give people who don't know enough about a lot about Tyson don't give him credit for what a complicated and interesting guy he really is. Like I
oh,
read his
dude,
memoir a few years ago, and they just so much stuff has happened to him that you forget like
dude,
major milestones,
dude,
you
his
know?
life story is fucking
It's
insane, and like the
insane.
way he turned it around now. Like I don't know if you watched his podcast, Hot Boxing, which is
I've
a
seen a
great name
bunch of
for
them.
his
Yeah, they're
podcast.
great. Now he smokes
They're
30
fucking
grand worth of weed a month or something.
yeah, dude. He's fucking. It's an amazing story. Like to be a kid who had absolutely nothing to becoming the youngest heavyweight champ in the world to basically being completely screwed by fucking Don King and
Yeah.
everything, losing all of his money, like literally fighting for his like taking fights well past he should have been in the ring, just so he could keep his fucking lights on. To
So many
completely
ups and downs.
like struggling with drugs, going to jail,
Yeah.
over some fucked up, over some fucked up shit.
You know what's funny
Um,
about that is like the thing that's the thing that I think Tyson you really point and go, okay, this is a little, but like in the documentary he about that he says, I wasn't guilty of that, but I was guilty of many of that with other people, and I was like, that's the moment where I then believe almost everything Mike Tyson says to some degree
yeah,
because like
dude, like
he's so earnest. It's like when he says this stuff, he's just like he's so willing to admit his faults, which is
yeah.
such a rare thing for like somebody. He looked like somebody who was going to be a cautionary tale, but he grew into somebody who was so much more
Who's like
reflective and
yeah,
interesting.
like
Like,
it's funny. Like back in the day, I used to watch like Mike Tyson interviews and stuff because I would laugh at the things he said. Like, dude, he once was like, dude, he once like, yeah, the words inappropriate. Not. He goes, he literally yelled at the guy. He was like, I'll fuck you till you love me," an F
yeah,
word
yeah,
that I don't feel comfortable saying anymore
right.
these days. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
yes.
And he was screaming at a person in the crowd. He's like, "I'll fuck you till you love me," like, and he was just like, dude, he like, "I'll eat your children," like, dude, he was like such a menace at one point. I used to watch these quotes of him, like, and like laugh and be like, "This guy's fucking insane."
Yeah.
Now I listen to the quotes and the things he says now, and it's like so like he's an intelligent human being, and he says like these amazing inspirational quotes. It's just such like a night and day
Yeah.
of what Mike Tyson quotes used to be 20 years
Right.
ago to
I
where
think
Mike
the
Tyson
turning
quote is
point was
today.
probably everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face, which
Oh,
is
it's an
like the best
amazing, yeah,
Tyson. Yeah.
yeah.
And he's such,
Yeah,
I think a lot of people like to see people as black and white, and they just like they like to very much either demonize somebody or love them. But I think
oh,
Tyson's one of those
100%.
people who you really see the gray area of what humanity can be. And
Yeah,
because he was
like, dude,
somebody who was plucked out of something and put into something that it was almost like a social experiment to take somebody like that talented and just have all those like nobody has ever lived that life before. That
no,
Mike Tyson
no, he had a
story
pet
is,
tiger.
yeah, I know, yeah.
He was asked about that recently on the podcast. They're like, dude, why did you buy a tiger? He goes, because I was dumb. He was like, I was fucking 19, 20 years old with more money than I ever thought I'd see. He's like, I was
Yeah,
just dumb.
yeah,
Uh, yeah.
so,
Like
yeah.
dude, he told a story one time that he got pulled over in like a fucking Lambo, and he didn't want to take like the $200 ticket, so he gave the cop the Lambo. He was like, "I'll give you the Lambo," and then like a day later, he sobered up and was like, "That was stupid." So he called the police station. It was like, "Hey, I gave one of your guys a Lambo yesterday. Can I have it back?" And the cop got fired for taking the bribe.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and he was like, "Yeah, like cops should have taken it." You
yeah.
know,
Though
and he
it's
was like,
like
in hindsight, the ticket was cheaper than the Lambo.
right.
But
Though with Mike Tyson, it's like I feel like Mike Tyson in handcuffs, I'm still pretty nervous. Like,
dude, there's a great photo. Like I don't remember, like it was like a melee after the fight, and there's like 20 cops in the ring, and Mike Tyson, and you see every cop go, oh, like this
yeah,
guy's got guns and fucking billy clubs, and they're still all like, nope, nope.
yeah.
Like it's a look of fear in all those men's eyes.
When you see Tyson in his prime, like I can't believe anybody could have ever beaten him. Like when you see him that big and that fast, I've never seen anybody like that.
Well,
Like,
like in like he beat people before he stepped in the ring with
oh
people.
God, yeah,
People were terrified. I don't know if you're really familiar with Buster Douglas, the man who first
yeah,
beat him.
yeah.
So that fight, Buster Douglas, his mother had passed away very, very recently
Oh
before.
yeah,
And it was, his mother was his entire life, from what I understand, he was a single mother, she raised him. And so he was so crushed by that, he was like, nothing can hurt. He's like, a punch in the face is not gonna hurt me as much as he's going through already. So he was the first man who just wasn't afraid of Mike Tyson. Like you see people like when Mike would walk in the ring, no music, no nothing, a fucking towel cut in half, walking into the ring, just
yeah,
looking terrifying. People were beat before he threw a fucking punch.
yeah.
And Buster Douglas was the first person who just wasn't fucking scared. And it just goes to show, like, you know, uh, I forget. I quote this many times, and I wish I could remember who said it. I always credit to Phil Jackson, the coach. He said, I want to say it's him, but I could be wrong. He goes, whether you think you can or you
I
think you
think you
can't,
can.
you're
You're
right.
right. Yep.
And Buster Douglas was the first person who was like, I can beat him. Everybody else, no one else thought they could. And
Right.
like sometimes it just shows that those men fight 9 out of 10 times. Mike Tyson's knocking his ass out. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But he walked in there fearless and fucking took down the baddest man on the planet when he was the baddest man on the planet. It's so funny,
Right.
like when they did that fight, they were so convinced because he was supposed to fight, I want to say Lennox Lewis next, and that was the big fight. Buster Douglas was just a warm up for that fight.
Yeah.
And dude, they didn't even bring ice to the ring when they fought. Like Mike Tyson's corner crew didn't bring water. They didn't bring ice. So when he got his face
The
warmed up,
easiest job in wrestling
dude,
in boxing.
they went to the concession stand and got a cup of fucking ice and poured it in the ring guy's glove to put it on Mike Tyson's face because they literally didn't even bring a fucking ice pack. That's how much they're like, dude, he's just gonna fucking
That's confidence.
boom, 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 and knock him out because that's what he did back then. Like it's insane. Which is also like a good muscle. Like never underestimate your opponent. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
which is something in battle rap. Go back. Do you know that
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
me? It's something like a part. Like I said earlier, my reputation means more to me than a win or a loss. You
Well,
know what I mean? Like
that's
I've
what's
lost.
interesting too, is like, so do you like I was interrupting you, but I didn't know they really had a question. I thought I was gonna come up
Yeah,
with
of course.
one.
That's all right.
Because
Yeah,
I did
but
plan on bringing this back to battle rap. Like, what fuck, man. Like I'm just
yeah,
still thinking about
like
Tyson.
to back we were talking about. I can turn this into back to battle rap, no problem.
Yeah.
So battle rap, like we were talking about earlier, as far as jokes, personals, punchlines. I always compare it to MMA and boxing because it's like like when I first started, jokes were very heavy and like I'm a funny guy. And when I first started
Yeah.
battle rapping, that's all I wanted to do was make fun of rappers. Like there was a lot of rappers at that time, like like cocky battle rap ego, and rappers think they're the greatest in the world.
Right.
I just wanted to go up on stage and make fun of me. You know what I
Right.
mean? And then people started saying I wasn't lyrical enough, and that bothered me. And I was
What
like,
is
yo,
it?
my whole
That's something that I don't even know that it's like when people are like, yo, is he technical enough? I'm like, well, he doesn't have a
yeah,
wrench in his fucking hand, so I don't know
like do
what like
it like doing music, everyone said I was too lyrical to be successful.
yeah.
And I went to battle rap, people said I wasn't lyrical enough, so I got this huge chip on my shoulder.
Like,
But I always say, compared to MMA, because some people will be like, oh, like all you need to do is know how to throw punchlines to win a battle. And I'm like, well, that's like saying all you need to know how to do is box to win an MMA fight.
Right.
It's like you can be the best boxer in the world. Like, oh my god, I can't think of his name now. Tony something. I can't think of his name. He's a great fucking boxer. Went into MMA and got fucking choked the fuck out in 2 seconds by Randy Couture. Conor McGregor, a great MMA fighter, stepped into a boxing ring and got lit the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, so I always say battle rap is like MMA and it's like boxing. Like, styles make fights. You know what I mean? Like, just because you're real good at one style, you might beat a lot of people with that style till you come across a fucking jujitsu guy who chokes you the fuck out. You know what I mean? Like, so, like, to turn it back to battle, that's like, I'm a big MMA fan. Like I said, I'm a big boxing fan. Obviously, talking about Mike Tyson. That's like one of the analogies I always go with as far as like comparing battles. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you ever feel that like, do you ever get in a battle and know somebody's scared of you?
Oh yes, 100%. Like not just not like I've built
because you can tell if you're around somebody in a competitive environment, you can feel their energy. I mean,
Yeah. Like I've seen the look in people's faces, like when I start rapping and shit. Like I've had people, especially after, to be like, "Yo, like it's a lot different when you're saying those things to me." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
it's like playing Jeopardy. It's like, well, it's always your turn at home, and you're not competing with anybody. You know.
And like, dude, I'm a small man. I'm not a big guy by any stretch of the imagination. You know what I mean? I'm a pretty fucking short kid. I'm skinny. You know what I mean? So it's easier for people to be like, "Oh, like I'll fucking tool in this kid." And then when I start barking on people, like sometimes it's the shock value of it, and sometimes it's like, and again, I've built a reputation, and I built, I'm not a big fan base, what do you call it, but people know me.
People know
and sometimes that alone surprises people. You know what I mean? Like, I did a great battle against a kid named Chris Mills, who I love Chris Mills very much. He is an absolute stand-up guy. He doesn't battle anymore, but he's someone I kept in contact with over the years and is a great friend. And when we battled in Quincy, and which is my backyard.
Yeah.
And I brought a lot of friends to that one, and he didn't know that. So right when they're like, "Yo, rapid to my left, introduce yourself," I just went like this, and the whole crowd started going 3SK, 3SK, and the look in his eyes was he was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Because he was still relatively new at battle rap. You know what I mean? He was real good. Like, he was one of those kids who came in, it was real good. So I was like, "Yeah, I'll battle this kid. Like, I like him." You know what I mean? And the look in his eyes, like he told me after, he's like, "I fucking." It was over right then and there. You know what I mean? Like, but like I've had people tell me, like, no one ever will admit it before the battle. Like, "Oh, I'll fucking smoking," but people have been after me, like, "Yo, like this is," and I battled a lot of people where I'm, again, I'm not the biggest name, but I've done a lot of battles where I'm the bigger name. And I take a lot of pride in that, because when I first started, the bigger names wouldn't battle me. So when I finally, some people get recognition for who they battle. I got recognition because I would battle anybody. You know what I mean? Like, it took a very slow process for me to be where I am, because I literally would battle every month, and I would battle anybody. You know what I mean? Like, that competitiveness in me was like, all right, like, you guys aren't going to give me, if you guys aren't going to give me my flowers, for lack of a better word, like, I'm going to fucking take them. You know what I mean? So that was always my mentality.
Point. Yeah, you'll get the good battles by going through and proving a point and like making a name.
Like 40 bars was my first like big battle I had, and that was my 20-something battle. And I talked to certain people now, like, again, battle rap was very different when I started. There wasn't a lot of leagues, there wasn't a lot of money being thrown around, and people like who I know, like, this sixth battle, they're battling a big name, and like, "Oh, it took you 20, but it took me 6." It took me building New England battle rap for 6 years before you could get a big name. You know what I mean? Like, when me and Maroney and those kids started, it was so different back then. Like, but I don't take any, I'm glad of where I am. Like, like when this is all said and done, and I retire, which is probably sooner than later, I can look back and be very proud that I played a large part in building this scene. Like, when I came into the music scene, like, again, like, when I first heard of these guys, it was an opening to a music scene that I eventually became a part of and blew up. I met you. I met, all these kids. We kind of had our own scene, but I didn't build that scene. That scene was kind of already existing, and I played my part in it, and I tried to be as much a part of it as I could, which I feel like I did. But in the battle rap scene, I really was like a founding person. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Maroney particularly, Chilla Jones, and a handful of others that are still around, played a large part in building what is New England battle rap now. And that's something I will always like
you could walk into any league in any English speaking league and hold your own. I mean, it's like there aren't a lot of people that can say that.
Yeah, and like despite the fact, like again, I'm not the biggest in the world, but like I've gone, I got the opportunity to go to Canada and other places, and it's always surprised me. Like I walk into a room in another country and people know who I am. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that must be
Like
wild.
you know what I mean? Like talking about our rugged man earlier. Like I'm not,
Yeah,
every once in a while I'll get stopped, in my hometown and people know who I am. But to be in
yeah.
another country and people know who I am,
that
it's
that
a
must be
surreal thing. You know what I
mind-boggling.
mean? Like
Yeah.
it's I built my own little niche and I'm very proud of it. You know what I mean? Like again, I'm not the most famous person in the world. I'm not the biggest
No.
battle. I'm not even the biggest battle rapper in New England, but I've definitely carved out a lane and built my own little legacy. You know what
No,
I
but
mean?
people,
So
this is one of those things that people who are passionate about it are super passionate about it, and
yeah,
I
it's
do think
like
it could have a bigger
wrestling.
audience. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like
it's
wrestling. Like some people, if you get it, you get it, and
right.
and a lot of people who get it love it. You know what I mean?
And there's an
Because
endless number of ways to talk shit on somebody like that. They're never gonna
yeah,
run. That well will never be dry.
yeah, because everybody's different. Like the things I say to you won't be the same as I would say to
Right.
another battler. I mean, sometimes it is. I mean, my style is my style. It doesn't change too much, but
Yeah.
and in the punchline style, there's always something to punch. There's always going to be a
Yes.
new slang that I can turn. There's always going to be a twist of phrase I can do. There's always going to be a reference to be made. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So there's
Yeah.
always someone's always going to look like something. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I
hey,
know.
you look like
Someone's
this
yeah.
guy type shit. There'll
Yeah.
always be that. You know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
battle rap style has evolved. My style has evolved. Again, 10+ years of doing it. You have to evolve or die. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah. Man.
it
Well, all
never, it
right.
never.
That's probably a good place to leave it off.
Yeah, yeah.
Evolve or
I
die.
agree.
Um,
Thank you
any
very
other?
much for having me. I
No
thoroughly
problem.
enjoyed
Thank
this
you.
conversation.
Yeah,
Even
me
if this
too.
wasn't recorded, I would have loved having this conversation
Yeah.
anyway. And I very much appreciate you
Yeah.
reaching out to do this. And I appreciate all the art you've done for me over the years too, by the way.
No
For,
problem.
for anyone
Always
who
happy
doesn't
to.
know, the face that you made, the mask that you made for me is still one of my favorite pieces of artwork I've ever had made for me. And I still want
Should
to
get
get
a
it on
real one of those
t-shirts.
made up.
I forget if you did that for me. That was right before COVID, if I remember
I think it was
correctly.
like early time. Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
Because I at that time I had just gotten these shirts made, and that was going to be the next one. But then live events stopped and all that shit happened. I
Yeah.
plan on, for a quick plug, I do plan on releasing
Yep.
new music soon. I have an EP that I started working on during COVID. It's called Sullivan, which stands for Suckers Usually Lose Lyricism into Violence and Negativity. And I wanted to do something that was, again, this started during COVID. I want to do something that was just non-battle rap. I didn't want to write,
Yeah.
I'm going to fuck your girl and I'm going to shoot you bars. So I started making that project, and that mask is going to be the cover of it.
Oh, dope. Sweet.
So I can finally do something with it. I made stickers with it and shit, but yeah, that's whenever I get around to finish
Yeah.
it. Shout out to Matthias. I recorded the whole thing in my house and I re-recorded it there to add mix and masters. Shout out to Matthias and a couple other people who were involved in it. But
Sweet, man.
I
That's awesome.
I want to thank you severely for everything and always being a fucking stand-up person.
Yeah, you too, man. What's your social media and stuff so people can find you?
At 3SK Hip Hop on pretty much everything. Twitter. I got my Twitter fucking kicked off for talking shit to a Fox News reporter a few years ago. So I got like 3 followers on the new one. I don't really use it, but that's another story. Instagram, hit me on Instagram, Facebook at 3SK Hip Hop is mostly everything.
All right, word, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very
Thank you
much
so
again.
much.
Absolute pleasure talking to you. Not impossible for you to get cooked over some fake beef, break teeth. You are the most non-threatening white guy I've ever met. The type to say shit like, "Hey, chief." Hey, chief. They pick lock because you're a safe cracker like a bank thief. Hey, yo, ready? Let's go. Hey, yo, ready? Jesus. You look like a crooked rookie undercover cop here to close a case, motherfucker. Duke lacrosse team rapist, motherfucker. Face it, motherfucker. Use a Buzz Lightyear origin story looking in the face, motherfucker. Wow. Keep going, dude.